All right, everybody, welcome to the I Disagree podcast. You know, I can honestly say the reason why we've named it I Disagree is because it's two words I believe that have not only changed my life, but we all wouldn't be sitting here if we didn't say I disagree. And here's basically what we stand for. In the past 3 years, there has been more disagreements, controversies, opinions, ideas, failed expectations, character reveals, surprises, disappointments, lies, beliefs, assumptions, and bullshit than ever before. Here we go. You guys ready for the first one? Welcome, you guys. It's exciting for you guys to be here. And like I said, I always like to give everybody that's here the idea of how the show became about. Because I can honestly tell you, those two words that sit on the middle of the desk are the reason why. And I know and Elijah gave you guys a tour of the facility before the way. And people are always blown away by what we're doing here, what we're doing across the world. But it stemmed from, almost 30 years ago, just saying those two words, I disagree. But that stemmed not only from the topics that I love to talk about, but then it's molded into other topics. We're talking about that, and I want to say this. If you think of it this way, the example of the show over the past 3 years, we've had more disagreements, controversies, opinions, ideas, failed expectations, character reveals, surprises, disappointments, lies, beliefs, assumptions, and bullshit than ever before. Okay? So the purpose of us even getting together is to have a different perspective on topics, to the 4 topics that mean the most to me, because it was a part of my career, and I had evolved, and everybody knows my clinical story, but my personal, and then what happened with my family. But the idea is the 4 topics I love the most is the fact that health care, men and women, obviously because I dealt with hormone stuff my whole career, and actually Ashley and everything, and we'll have to talk about that one too. And then politics, because as one of our big topics today we're going to talk about, because I think that politics is not understood in our world today. We're talking about that deeply. But then religion and stuff. So we're talking about the things, and I love that face. What's really funny? I always said this. Do you know? I think evil people have said this, and because we all said this. I remember saying this before I actually, started to really think about it. You ever notice during the holidays, because we got Christmas and Thanksgiving coming in a couple months, you ever notice that people say, never discuss politics and religion?
Yep.
I believe that evil people created that. Mm-hmm. Do you know why? Because it's two of the most important things you should ever talk about.
Yeah.
And they want you not to talk about it because you might have a disagreement at an event. Well, guess what? If you don't have that, you won't understand where you stand or even why you stand for something that way. So one of the reasons why this podcast is even put together is because I want to. This is like sitting at a kitchen table. We're going to talk about these things. So what we're going to do is this. Everybody knows who I am, and so we're going to go. We'll start with my 2 wonderful co-hosts, Dana and Ross. We're going to start with you guys. Introduce yourself, and then we're going to go around the room. After our co-hosts, we're going to start with you two, then we're going to go around the room, introduce yourself, tell us a little about us, and if you have something that nobody knows about you, definitely tell it here. Okay?
Hi, everybody. I am Ross Skorzewski. I am VP of Real Estate here at the Wellness Way. I work a lot with acquiring new office locations for our clinics, negotiate leases, oversee build-outs. As you can see, as we even sit in the middle of this room, this did not exist at one point in time, so I project manage on behalf of our intent as the Wellness Way when we're going into new locations, design as well as project manage throughout the process. Doing one in Marietta, Georgia right now as well. Just got back. And even before working with him, I was in construction. I have a history of framing houses, expediting, working with a lot of the trades to make sure that people were able to move into their locations with as minimal amount of chaos. You want to just turn the keys into their hands and let them live and create their stories. And before that, I served as an associate pastor on staff at a church here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So kind of a jack of all trades, wicked enough and skilled enough to be able to accomplish a lot of tasks and be dangerous in many different points of view and opinions.
Yeah,
Wicked is right.
And we've been together since early 2000s.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
We have a long history. Dana?
Yep.
Are we doing age, marital status, all those things?
We
got to advertise you a little bit.
I'm older since our last one, so do I have to say my age?
Yes.
Yes. So I finally hit 30. It was great.
Yes.
I turned 49 this past week and stuff of that. So
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm 72 and working with the Wellness Way. This
That's
is what
right.
72 looks
Yeah.
like. So that's not a little shameless plug for the Wellness Way. No, I am 48, knocking on 49, the beautiful 74 Club. And I have 2 wonderful children. My son, Kian, who is 18 and about to be shipped off to the Marines here in the next few months. Excited about his career path. And my daughter, Maya, who is 12 years old. And she is a beautiful mini version of me. Scares the daylights out of me. So yeah, 48 and looking great. What do you got?
Our other co-host, Dana.
Ross, you're something. I'm Dana Dilling. I'm 34. I live over in De Pere. I've been married for 9 years. I have 2 boys, Jack and Max, who are 8 and 6, so second grade and going into kindergarten pretty soon. I'm a clinical nutritionist. I used to actually be a CPA, so I went to school for accounting and business management, and I did that for 10 years. I worked on tax, actually, and then decided that career was not for me, and given my passion for health, I decided to make that transition, and Alex, who you'll meet in a minute, is the one who has trained me over the last several years. But that's what I do now, along with co-hosting this podcast, and I also make content for men looking for dating and relationship advice called Dana Disagrees on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And it's taken off quite well.
Yes.
You understand? And it's kind of nice.
We have a lot more to come.
Yes, we do.
Eric's been pumping out videos.
Yes, I have. Alex.
I'm Alex Hardinger. I'm 38. I have 2 sons. They're 11 and 6. I work in clinical nutrition like Dana. I own a natural health practice in central Wisconsin. My 11-year-old son had a lot of issues when he was a baby, and I recovered him from autism over the years. So I'm pretty passionate about what I do, but kind of like Ross, I feel like I'm meant to do many different things in this life, and I'm in a stage of diverge to converge. I love what I do, and I'm ready to do more.
Wow, you guys got great resumes so far. Basically, my name is Elijah Banky. I'm 40, and I got 2 beautiful children, a lovely wife. They're over in Minnesota visiting Grandma and Grandpa. Basically, I got invited to here to talk about, possible legislation. I got elected into office in 2020. I was called non-essential in the shutdown, which was absolutely ridiculous because I own a cleaning service. So you talk about how dumb the government can be. I couldn't clean an empty house, but I could go into a commercial property with a bunch of people, right? Just didn't make any sense. So when my predecessor stepped down from the assembly district that I represent now, it was an open seat. It was in February. And so I asked my wife, like, hey, can I run for this office? And she took like 10 days to pray about it. So I thought it was going to be a no. And I said, well, after she gave me a yes, I said, how much can I spend? And she said, $5,000. I'm like, there's no way, but the faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain. Let's give it a try. So me and, a bunch of, people came around me to help me knock on like 5,000 doors in 6 weeks to get elected. So I've been in office 2.5 years. I represent from St. Mary's Hospital to the state line. So I got the city of Marinette and basically the 41 corridor. So no constituents, I think, but yeah, you guys know a lot of my constituents. So good to be here.
Yeah.
My name is Kurt Frisk. Worked in construction industry for over 40 years. I was a steam fitter, for those who know what that is. Something like a plumber. I've been married to a wonderful woman for 47 years.
Wow.
I have 2 sons. One son works here at the Wellness Way, and my daughter-in-law as well. I also am an elder in a church here in Green Bay and did a lot of outreach ministry over the years. And I am a little far right, but that's okay. I can play the far left game too.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be here tonight.
I am Ashley Balza, and I am better known as an aloe skincare mama, but I am a mom of 7. I have been married for 16 years. My husband and I have been together for 18. We own a construction company here in Green Bay, and I am in direct sales as well. We homeschool. We've got 2 grandbabies. Our oldest is in the Marine Corps, stationed down in North Carolina right now. So that's me.
Excellent. Well, nice thing. We have a great crowd tonight. Now, you're going to see some of us, we're going to write some notes that way because as we continue to go through things, we're going to now give you guys an opportunity to share your thoughts and stuff. We might fire some questions at you that way. So, and I can tell it's going to be an awesome show because we all have a lot of the very similarities there from careers and some of the things that we all are involved in. But we're going to start with this. And Elijah, it's we're going to start with you, obviously, in this one because as you guys know, for people I don't know, if you've ever followed my stuff, everybody knows I love politics. And I'm critical of both sides, saying by far. Obviously, people would rate me more of like a conservative, but I always tell people, don't even call me that. You understand? Because I just, I don't know if you guys know this, I was going to tell you this, I was trending on Twitter a couple days ago as a DNC mega donor. And I'm like,
Wow.
that was kind of funny. I'm like, I've never given $1 to the Democratic National Committee, but what ended up happening is I did give money to RFK. Do you understand? I gave a nice chunk of money. and stuff. Of course, everything's public, so what happens is, of course, then it was kind of hilarious, and it was like, and I thought it was great, and so I'm like, all of a sudden, I wake up and my ex Twitter thing's going like crazy. I'm like, what's that for and stuff like that. And I'm like, and I can honestly say he's the only Democrat I ever gave money to, but I don't really consider him a Democrat. But we're going to get into this, so because it's going to be now. I think this is going to be quite controversial because I'm going to say a couple of things when it comes to this. But what we're going to do is I'm going to pose the statement I believe. So these statements I'm going to share with you guys, I believe. And what I want to do is this: I want we'll go on the room. We'll start. Elijah, come this way, and Kurt will end with you on this one. But and if you do agree, do me a favor. Once again, share your thoughts of why you agree, because you'll find out that a lot of people agree for different reasons, and they can learn something by doing it. And that's the whole purpose is if you agree or disagree, the whole purpose is you're going to learn something either way and stuff. So, or if you do disagree, you're going to find out. I tell people this: do you know when people disagree with something, but they can't never explain why, and so they take it dogmatically. Well, my church told me, or my parents believe this, and things like this. You'd be surprised how many people disagree and have absolutely no clue why they do. So, a little controversial one. This is going to be a long talking point. Here we go. I don't believe most people are informed enough about issues to vote.
Yeah.
So agree or disagree first
I
of
will
all.
start with the first statement. I actually agree.
Okay.
So I was like a talk radio junkie before running for office. So I like watched the presidential debates and voted for the big stuff, but didn't care about the little things like, village hall, school board. Well, that's 18 to 30. So I really just followed the national scene. And, I started to learn before COVID, but definitely through COVID, you realize that a mayor can make the difference, right? A county board can keep you shut down. Dane County was shut down for, almost 2 years. In Oconto County, the sheriff let the governor have his 60 days and then didn't care about anybody going anywhere. So it was all local elected officials that got to make the decision. So the sad thing is, I was kind of telling the ladies before we started, I'll be at the grocery store and a total stranger I've never seen before in my life is like, hey, Rep Banky, so glad you're working on this, this, and this. And I'm like, gosh, you feel bad. I don't even know who they are. And then other times I'll be in a crowd of a couple hundred in my hometown and nobody knows that I'm their state rep and they can come to me for, DNR issues or, questions about taxes. So I feel that our culture through mediums like this will benefit if we get more involved. Sadly, because we've given our government too much power, you now have to take over, right? School boards and town halls and build that resume to get into the state house. And I could give you examples, but basically there is so much at stake for taking control. I feel like we have more conservatives in office in the state house now than probably ever before because COVID taught so many people golly, the government has too much control. And so it wasn't just me running. There's dozens of people that ran just because of the shutdown.
Now, quick thing, because before I go to Alex, how would you describe what a conservative is? Because I'm very big on defining things. Because you'd be surprised that people don't understand just even basic words.
No, thank you for that.
How would you do that?
So you're conserving, in my mind, this is how I've always thought about it, I'm conserving the way the things ought to be. So it started in the Garden of Eden, and then things fell in sin, but a good culture, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal. You're kind of conserving those ideas. So I think the government steals too much of our money in taxes, right? So I'm trying to conserve basic principles of the way humanity should function. That's how I define it in my own mind, but I don't know if anybody's ever asked me.
Yeah. Well, no, anybody that knows me, I'm very big on terms and terminology that way because I think if you ever look this way, and one of our amazing people that work with us, Erin, one of our journalists over there, her being even an English teacher, the amount of words that people use today in language has dramatically become very small. You ever read even old writings?
Yes.
It was very linguistic and it was actually like a poem. You say, and now it's what's up, bro? That's about it. I'm going, I'm no joke. I'm going, this is what we've turned out to.
Yeah.
But you ever read some old writings? It's almost poetic that way. So, Alex, okay, here we go. Remember, this is what I believe. I said disagree or agree. I don't believe most people are informed enough about issues to vote. Agree or
So
disagree?
I just want to start by saying I completely agree with the discussion about religion and politics. And I remember my grandpa saying that, and he's one of the greatest humans that has ever been on earth, but look where that got us.
Yes.
They sat around playing cards and never offending each other with any sort of opinions, and look where that got us. Because people didn't stand up. So I couldn't help but think that my 11-year-old's probably more qualified than most adults to vote.
Yeah.
And Dana's
Yeah,
been
he
at my
is.
house on election
Yes, he
night, and
is.
he paces like a 70-year-old man
Yeah.
walking back and forth, just, praying for this country. I definitely don't think people are that informed. I do think a lot of people woke up recently. I was the same exact way as far as not really paying attention to anything other than the national level until COVID. And then, actually, this is like a longer story, but got back together with my ex-husband during this because of our love for freedom.
Yeah.
How I felt about certain medical freedoms is how he felt about his guns, and neither one of us would put a mask on or stay home. So he ran for 2 local offices. I ran for school board. Worst idea of my life. 10 out of 10 do not recommend doing that. We can talk more about that later. He won both of his seats, though, and they are making a difference. And I would still say that just such a tiny percentage of people know what's going on, but it's growing.
Right.
So I agree with you.
Good. Ross, what you got?
Are you going to read it to me again?
I'll read it to you. Of course.
Thank
And as I'm learning, I should read it each time because we get to different talking points. Ross, I agree that this is my viewpoint. I don't believe that most people are informed enough about issues to vote.
I agree 100%. For me, just kind of even resonating with this, that talking about politics or even religion amongst family members, friends, gatherings, this, that, and more, it's always highly discouraged. But it's also one of the things that is the most emotionally charged. So unfortunately, information is lacking, but emotion is always present. And most people, when they are in a highly emotive state, they're not even able to present their why.
Yes.
And that's what leads me to, without any question but absolute conviction, say that I would dare say most people are ill-equipped on the informational level to adequately vote to support their emotion. But emotion takes the cake, so therefore I say no. I agree with you 100%.
And Dana, I think this is one of the reasons why when we sat down and said we should do podcasts is the fact even with just Elijah and Alex, or I said, think of it this way, they were able to articulate, explain, they were pushed into a thing that way. And I guarantee there's people watching right now that are going to be like, oh my goodness, I feel the same way. Maybe I got to get involved.
Right.
Do you understand? Because if you keep an uninformed population, you keep them under control.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. It's like, and I still believe that the majority of people, if they're informed, they will make the right decision and stuff. So, all right, Dana, I don't believe that most people are informed enough about issues to vote. Agree or disagree?
Great, we'd all just agree. I would also agree with that. 'Cause see, the funny thing is I also did the only thing I ever voted for before COVID was for president. And I mean, that was pretty sketchy if that was even really a truly informed decision. And I think there's a big problem too now of everybody looking at the ballot and just looking for the R's and the D's
Right.
and just going based off of that and not even knowing all the names on the ballot. And I can honestly say that the most informed I have ever been about an election was definitely once it came down to school board. I knew every one of those people in and out, knew exactly who needed to be on that board and advocated for them. And that's small compared to, actually it's a really big deal, but, small compared to president in most people's minds, but yeah.
Yeah, and you know what's really funny, and Elijah, you brought this up, if you think about this, is a lot of people do not realize the way we're actually truly set up. People don't understand how much power a sheriff has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A sheriff can actually overstep a governor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really can. It's like, and local governments are so important that's why I tell people, I've been involved with local government since I was a teenager and since even now. And it's like, because you know why? Because there's so much ability you have to have an impact on your community that way. And people realize that, no, the
Right.
government's most important. That's not really true. You understand? It's like, that's why, I figure, if everything happened in my past, I'm like, I gotta know sheriffs, because if they arrest me someday, at least they're gonna have a chance to let me know.
Right, no kidding. And I will say that now, because of everything with school boards and everything, I will never miss a local election again.
Yes. All right, Ashley. I don't believe that most people are informed enough about issues to vote.
I
Agree or
would
disagree?
100% agree with that. And the reason I say that is because, like everybody here, politics at family dinner at Christmas and the holidays is totally off topic. I actually asked if I could wear this beautiful shirt this
What does it
last
say?
year.
Come on, what does it say? Show the cameras right there.
Just a regular mom trying not to raise liberals.
Yes.
And I asked if I could wear this to Christmas because it's kind of Christmassy this last year, and my aunt gave me a big "that's a negative." And
Why
I
did
was
you
like,
ask?
Dang it. Well, and she's the only one that I know is Republican. So in my family, everybody else is Democrat. But when I was old enough to vote, the first thing my father said to me was, "You're gonna vote for Obama." And I was like, but why? And he couldn't even give me a logical reason. And I didn't, at that time, know enough about politics to really, I guess, make that educated decision. But I knew enough, like, that's not the route I'm taking. Even local, I feel that I've become more involved. But even school board, I don't necessarily look at every candidate as closely as I probably should because I homeschool my kids.
Right.
So I don't take part in that public school aspect. But yes, I definitely agree that there is more education that needs to happen regarding that. And everybody is so like, let's watch this news station and let's watch this one, getting their education. But really, are you, like, you have to research it on your own and find the answers that you're looking for.
Yeah, I posted something about, was it 2 or 3 months ago? I said, do you think the news is free because they care about you being informed or control what you think? I don't think anything that's free, it's not worth it. You saying it's just a narrative they're trying to put across that way, and we've seen that's why we look at obviously it's been called fake news a lot, but journalism is really journalism more. Yeah. That's why networks are crashing and stuff like that. And something interesting you brought up, and Ross you brought up, and I want to run on this for a second, and you guys can chime in on this. But think about this. I want you to really think about this. Is people will take a stance saying you're going to do this and you're going to believe this, and then if you just start to talk with them, like he said, emotions come out. But do you know what that reminds you of? Because we all have kids. Let's say if you have a 1 or 2 year old and they can't articulate what they want, even if it's food, what's the response?
Cry.
They cry.
Tantrum.
They whine. They tantrum.
Yep.
Now we just have 42-year-old people that do that, and 26-year-old people that do that, because I'm voting for Obama. Now it's really funny because now it's really funny because I have to laugh about a couple things. I like the comedian Chris Rock. I just like him. He just speaks to my heart, okay? and he had a special one time, and he's like, why are you voting for Obama? He goes, he's black, I'm black, let's do this. But that happened a lot. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't vote for Obama, you're black, then you weren't really black. You're Uncle
black.
Tom and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? But see, the emotion comes out. It really does. And see, that's why, and it's really funny because I want you to think about this, is I just gave money to a liberal. Do you follow me that? Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at him, you would say that people would say, well, he doesn't really seem like a liberal because of what he stands for. No, but see, and that's why I sometimes want people to define the terms. Yeah. What do you mean by conservative? What do you mean by liberal? Mm-hmm. Do you say because I voted for somebody that you actually love for what the number one stance on vaccines and things like that. He's the strongest. He's better than Trump. He's actually, if you think of it this way, I was highly critical of Trump. I still believe that the Republicans and Trump were the biggest star of the problem when it came to the pandemic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because Trump was the one to push the vaccine. It wasn't Biden. It's easy to sit back now and look at all the devastation he did. But it was really Trump that warp speed and gave all our tax dollars to Pfizer. Yeah. You understand? And so it's like, see, that's why I kind of laugh, like, what's our terms that way and stuff. But the emotion comes out. So that's why we need to articulate and you find out. And that's why I think that, I think this podcast is going to teach people to sit down. And if you do believe something, sit back and articulate. And I want to ask you a question, Alex. Do you think that, because we're all people of faith here at this room this way, do you think that Jesus just blessed your 11-year-old son that he knows what he knows already compared to other people? I'm being ridiculous right now, just to let you know.
Right.
Why? How did he get that way?
Yeah, part of me thinks he's born an old soul. He's
rebellious by nature being a boy, but how?
Yeah. How did he? Well,
I know the answer because I actually know you a little bit.
Well, we don't hold back anything.
That's right. You trained him up.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends, Travis, right there, his dad, right there. Guess what happens? It was very easy to bring on people like Travis and Sarah here. You know why? Because I knew what they were trained by. I met the parents before I met them, and so it's easy to know that what they're going to stand for, and that's why I tell young ladies, man, you sometimes have to marry for potential if you meet in college. But I'd be seeing what the dad's like before I marry that son. Because if the dad's a piece of crap, man, I'd be sitting there going, You know what I'm saying? Get it that way. But see, you trained him up.
And we don't tell him what to think.
Yep.
We teach our kids how to think. And
Yes.
I could give you a million examples. He got in the car one day after school and he had like this tinfoil hat on.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, what's up?
Yep.
And he was like, oh, they were trying to teach us a whole bunch of liberal stuff, so I just went and got this.
He's got to
But I
block
was
it.
like, are you serious?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's from a book. But he had the forethought to make that joke. I'm like, who's raising who?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's good.
it's like Ashley. I've known Ashley, and Ashley pops out kids like Skittles. You know what I'm saying? That's
Not
like-
anymore. Not anymore.
Gary's like, turn it off. You made her hormones too good and stuff like that. But no, but every one of her kids, guess what happens? Because her and Gary train those kids up. The sad part is this. It's really funny, especially over today. People aren't training their kids up anymore. And see, here's what I want to encourage you. I want you to think about this a little differently about this. Remember, my kids go to a private Christian school, but I fight massively for public schools. Do you know why? Because those public school kids converse with the private school kids, and you think they're not influencing on those kids?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow me in that?
Yeah.
So you say, well, my kids don't go to school anymore. Yes, but your grandkids may go to a different school, and if they're being programmed by some other public school stuff that way, man, I encourage everybody to be involved in every political thing that way.
It's a great thing that you talk about, we do have an emphasis where we do talk about religion, right? Train up your children
Yes.
in the way that they should, what?
Go.
So that when they grow old, they will not what?
Depart.
Depart from it, right? It's a great thought, and I think we've done in the church a great job at really enforcing that on a spiritual trajectory. But really what it is, I think, as parents, and what we should be doing is creating critical thinkers. Sure, spirituality, and we'd like to also enhance or influence their political trajectory as well, right? It's part of our core values, what defines us, and we would love for them to embrace it. But in creating critical thinkers, we're also empowering them to be able to think and to ask questions, to disagree. And if they can come up with a why and explain to me their point of view or their perspective, that could give me pause to maybe accept their disagreement and actually come alongside them, that's important to me. And that is something that is not enforced or even, I think, promoted, is becoming that critical thinker. We just want to rubber stamp it. No, you're going to think this way. You're going to be this. And we don't equip them to think about the why until we get faced with a pandemic.
Right.
And then everybody else has to wake up and go, holy crap.
Right.
Holy
Right.
crap. I never thought that way. That's the problem.
Right.
And we need to encourage that more.
Well,
All
and I
right.
think too, like when you look at and Kurt, this is not a knock on the older generation.
Older.
Hey,
I mean, that's,
I'm checking your Medicare and Social Security. Let me know.
But like, it's not a discussion that anybody is openly having in the home. So then even my generation, born in 1986, like I didn't know what to look for, like what's a Republican, what's a Democrat. Like
Right.
I didn't know any of that.
Right.
So I looked to people that researched it, say on their own, and that I knew had brain cells clicking together that could give me some kind of educated answer, and not just following it blindly, but to be able to say, hey, who the hell should I vote for?
Yep.
Like, because there isn't that discussion in the home with your grandparents or this. It's just a taboo conversation of,
Yeah.
But like you talked about, see, they teach people, don't talk about this stuff.
Yep.
It's like this. I've always said this, and I relate to this all the time. Do you know? I think it's selfish rich people. Now remember, I'm rich, but I'm not selfish. Okay, but no, I mean this sincerely. I think selfish rich people came up with saying money doesn't bring happiness. Do you know why? Because they don't want you to be that way, and they've done that in the churches. And I think it's like going, because I'm sorry. I would tell people, if you don't think money brings happiness, you don't wear a shop. You know what I'm saying? And for all the overspiced, spiritualized Christian people that hate when I say that, I'll say this. Then if you didn't make enough, if you don't think money brings happiness, then you have not made enough to give it away. Because I happily gave you money. I happily give the politicians money, knowing the fact that I back them. I happily give people that are poor and starving or going through something bad. And I'm sorry, that brings great joy and happiness that way. So let's get to Kurt on this one. as
I know the question. I know the question.
yes, here we go. Well, we'll still read it just so
Okay.
our audience that way. I personally believe that I don't believe that most people are informed enough about issues to vote.
Absolutely not. No one is, hardly. I think it was Forrest Gump said, stupid is what stupid does. And I used to enjoy watching Jesse Waters, and he was just an interviewer. Didn't have his own
Waters World?
Waters World, and he'd go out there and
Yes.
he'd ask someone from college
Yes.
to it.
Oh my gosh.
What countries of north of America, what south of America, who fought in the Civil War?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how college students couldn't answer it. If you can't answer, who's the president of the United States? That sort of thing. So it's amazing how the litmus test. I have relatives that are just naive, and it seems like, and they're in their 60s. And I say, do you understand what's going on? In the liberal news, which is, like you say, bought and paid for now by social media, that's all they see. They don't see both. And it's important. I believe the best part about free speech is more free speech.
Yep.
I want to hear what you have to say, and so I can make an opinion. There was a time I never far left, but I was on the left side in the 70s and 80s. And as I evolved in time, I realized that there's another voice out there. But most people, I spend way too much time watching news on both sides. And I get angry sometimes when I hear some of the stuff you hear. But no, America is not prepared. A lot of people should not be voting. There should be a litmus test, but it doesn't work that way. If you're 18, now they want it down to 16 if they can do
Right.
it.
But
to vote.
Sure they
guess
do.
what? There used to be a litmus test.
Was there? I didn't know
And
that.
see, that's one thing I really want to encourage people, because being a history buff, and I love history, and people realize, I think the term politics is misunderstood. Because if you actually truly understand politics, you understand what we're founded on in our foundation, our Constitution, and our Declaration, and everything. And people realize that you understand that the only way you got to vote when this country first started, does anybody know how? You had to own land.
Oh, really?
You had to have
Yeah.
a certain responsibility. And that's why if you look at, anybody watch the debate last night and stuff? I watched partial of it that way. And because I want to
No, I
see.
didn't.
Saw the
bit.
recap.
Then I
What's
turned on
that?
Trump.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
watched more Tucker than I did.
Yeah.
Tucker.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like to watch, because I like to see what they're saying, what they stand for, because you know, and we're gonna get into the aspect of like, because even think of it this way, it's like this, you know, Kurt, I'm gonna ask you this question, being an elder of a church, and Ross, you can answer this question too. I'll let you both do this. Is knowing what people know about the Bible, how many of your people that sit at the church would you let preach on Sunday?
Maybe 5%.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And these are the people that say, I love God, I'm showing up every Sunday going, and you ask them a basic question. Like, I blew people away from this way because he said it's kind of funny. If I'm around an atheist, I become more spiritualized. Around over spiritualized, I'm basically an atheist, okay? And it's kind of funny. And when I ask people, I'm like, just a simple question for you guys. You guys know this. Where did the concept of original sin come from? It's actually not in the Bible. It's actually come from the Catholic priest, St. Augustine. And people look up and go, I didn't know that. Well, then what are you studying? Are you just saying because the preacher from Sunday told me something that way, so I'm going to believe it? It's no different than mom saying you're going to vote as a Democrat.
I'd like to say something on that. When you talk about preaching, the Bible says, and if you go to Ephesians chapter 4, around the 11th verse, it talks about the spiritual gifts, prophets, evangelists, pastors. They were given to the church. Not everybody has that calling. So I like to teach. I've been teaching in the Word of God for many, many years. I always use a term called wattage. Now you have a 100-watt light bulb in your life. If I was to do what you're doing, I'm probably 15 watts, even just a night light.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. So some people have a calling and a gifting. So biblically, a lot of people may read the Word of God, but don't study it like they should.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm going to push back and disagree
Yeah.
with you on this a little bit this way, because I think that gives people some cop-out.
That's true.
Because what it does, it gives them some cop-out that say, well, you know, he's a spiritual preacher this way. But aren't we all preachers? Aren't supposed to be preaching to your kids?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, because here, and all you guys I suspect have been in church before. Have you ever been to a church where a pastor's taught something wrong? Do you understand when my girls go to church, I will come home and I'll say, what did they teach you? And I'll look at them and say, that's full shit. It's like, no joke. I do. See, it's really funny because I don't want my kids being programmed by well, the pastor said that. I'm like, well, the pastor is not your protection, not your authority. I am. Do you understand? And it's like, and he's wrong, and stuff. And I think we don't do that because here, how many people do you want influencing your young daughter, Maya?
How many do I want
Yeah, I know your
influencing?
answer.
Well, I mean, I will going to reduce this to the
a
amount
minimum.
of people that I can count on one hand, and two of my fingers went into a snowblower, so I can't really raise those up. So,
I remember that.
you know, so very,
to Hawaii
very
after that.
few. And if they are going to influence them, I'm going to interview them first, and I'm going to see if they have the right to try.
Well, and it's like, and we can add that now going from the church to politics. People say, well, I just want to get involved in politics. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no. You have a duty. You know what I'm saying? You have a duty to actually do that. It's your responsibility to be part of a community that way and be informed about those things. And do you ever notice this? It's always the dumb people that seem to have the voice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Look at what here. Watch this. Let's talk about the 4 topics. I had a person recently reach out to me. I did this on our training this morning, because I have a nice little thing that my 9-year-old daughter got me. It says, "I love Jesus and I love the cuss a little bit too." Okay, and it sits on my thing. And legitimately, I get more Christians pissed off, even happens today, that I say the word "fuck" than anything else. I'm like, I'm fighting for you to have religious freedom, religious liberty, everything like that, but you're so misinformed about the right things, and they stand up for the dumbest things against people that way. Now watch. So I got a question for all you guys, and this relates to our informed. Okay, anybody here not believe that there's good and evil? I believe there's good and evil.
Yeah.
I mean, can we all agree upon that? Okay. So if we look at the realm of politics, let's start there.
All right.
Is it dominated by good or evil?
Is it what?
Is it dominated by good or evil right now?
Evil.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now I want you to think about this. So this woman would say, "Doc, it looks like you're upset and you're angry about something." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Let's go to the second one." I said, "If you look at just the way they look at males and females today, and how they're trying to get kids to understand sexuality, is it dominated by evil or good?"
Evil.
See,
Evil,
I can go
yeah.
to religion. I can go to healthcare. Healthcare over the last 3 years, dominated by good or evil.
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 And still this day, and what you're trying to do, we're going to talk about shortly. So I'm more upset that you're not upset. It always says in the Bible, evil only prevails when what happens?
Good men do
When the
nothing.
righteous
Yes.
do nothing, yeah.
And one thing is, and during COVID, I actually basically become friends with you during COVID because I would be asked to speak at these political rallies, things like that. And guess who showed up the most?
Women.
Women.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. Elijah, let's say that you were speaking somewhere.
Yep.
And we're going to get into this men and woman thing here, but I want you to think about this. I want you to really think about this. And now this may seem disrespectful. I want you to think about this. We got to talk about this as men. If you were speaking somewhere and not everybody likes you,
Yep.
do you understand? And it's like, no, think of it this way. But let's say you had 30 women outside protesting what you're saying. Okay?
It's usually just 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we had 3. You're always like, okay, big deal.
Yeah.
But you had 3 men standing out there. See, look at the face.
Yeah,
Look at
they
your
might
response.
kick my butt.
Guys,
Yeah.
Cameron, get his response.
Yeah.
Because the 3 women would
I'm
be
a
like,
small man, okay?
I would tell people,
All right?
yeah, exactly.
I'm a decent runner.
But
So they seem to be obese men.
Yeah,
Really fine.
You chose to be a decent
Right.
That's
runner.
right.
But I mean that in the way is the fact that it's like, so I look at why evil prevails, and you said it right. We're all the good men. Do you understand? And so I got a question for you guys. What generation do you think has started that? Kurt, I want to start with you on that because what do you think? Because you're a great man. I've known you for a long time. You've raised an incredible man.
Well, the first time I met you, I came to your chiropractic place over there in Howard. I noticed about a 6-year-old hamburger sitting there.
Yes.
It wasn't falling
From
apart.
McDonald's, yes.
McDonald's. Is it still around?
Actually, when we moved here, my team could start. They said, "Can we throw it away?" It's like 15 years old, and still not, and still.
It still looked the same.
Still look the
yeah.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually thought about taking a bite out of it, but no, I'm just teasing.
Just add water.
But get back to your question again, as far as good and evil again, or
Yeah, when I
gotta
have my opinion. When do you think? Because we weren't always this way.
I go back to the late 60s when Archie Bunker came out. And I really think that the family was attacked through Archie Bunker and those type of, demeaning men. Men are idiots. The men today, young men today are, I think I just read something this week, 80% of all suicides, and maybe this isn't right,
No, that's
are
right.
young men.
Yep.
80%. And they're always trying to say, well, some person was a doctor or this happened. Young men are killing themselves because they don't know how to be men anymore. And we've neutralized. We want to take with the testosterone, and they think the world thinks that's the answer. And it's not. Men need to be men. Women need to be women, and find their roles in life. And unfortunately, our culture is messed up. And that, to me, it started with the Archie Bunker thing and so forth, and just kept progressing from there.
That's so interesting that you bring that up. Ross and I have talked about TV before, and like male and female roles in there, and just how like sitcoms and how they portray men and women. Just like you said, like it's the smart woman and it's the dumb man, right?
Yep.
It's the Monica
Real
and
pretty woman
Chandler and
Yes.
yeah.
But you add the laugh track to
Yes.
everything, and you all of a sudden see, the husband and the wife or whatever the dynamic of the relationship, and the women start going, "Oh, that's me. And the husband goes, oh my gosh. And then the women feel
Right.
emboldened and that they can talk this way and, respect or disrespect their husband this because there's a laugh track, right? We're now empowering this train of thought and this posture that the woman is supposed to take. But I mean, Archie Bunker, well, how many other sitcoms have come
Yeah.
along the way, Married with Children?
Right.
And so much more. So where did it begin? I mean,
Yeah, and TV, it just programs you. That's all that it's doing. Just like how schools and churches and all that are doing. TV just programs you, and so whatever you're watching during the day, those things play out at night. Because humans, when they watch something, they mimic it, and that's why that's happening. It's like the Cosby effect. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
When the Cosby Show came out, right? The husband and wife, the two black couple, they were. What were they, a lawyer and a doctor or
Yep.
something like that? So then all of a sudden, black people started enrolling in higher education.
Your subconscious is always recording.
Right.
Always
yes,
recording.
always.
All that stuff is dealing with education from day one, our school system. Like I said, I understand my grandkids are homeschooled, except for one, and that the school he goes to is an excellent school. But other than that, education is huge. I coached football on and off for many years, and kids, you can really influence kids in a positive or negative way. And our kids are today in America don't want to represent America. They don't believe in America. They think that we're evil. Yet this is the greatest country in history, and Satan is trying to destroy it. That's how I look at it.
So Elijah, question the same thing when you because you have to deal with an array of age groups of men and women in the political scene down in the Capitol and stuff like that. Where do you see where they went wrong this way?
Well, I think a lot of them are politically ambitious. So I think I'm the only one elected in the state assembly. I don't know about the Senate, but I think I could say that too. That didn't have like prior assignments on a campaign as a staffer, or you were a Capitol staffer. I'm not saying good, bad, or ugly. You need some experience in the building. There's value in that. But I'm like the only outsider that had no prior experience. I wasn't a part of the party. I wasn't a part of the system. So, and then it's just money and ambition, right? So it's all about raising money, and it's all about helping the team so you can get, better committees or more responsibilities or better trips, which is ridiculous. I didn't sign up for that. I kind of do my own thing. So when I got my second term friend, Ty Bodden, shout out to him, great state rep, he basically said, well, you're not really protected by the speaker's money because you don't, kiss his rear end, and you're not really protected by your own alt-right group that you've, gotten behind you. You're kind of on your own. I'm like, that's okay. I don't need this job. It's a great privilege and an honor, but I made more money scrubbing toilets before I got elected.
Right.
So it's I'm not doing it for the money. I just like having a spy and an eye on the inside. So I kind of hate how much, if I could write a bill and it would get passed, I would love to ban lobbying, even though maybe it's good for guys like you.
No, I'm fully against lobbying.
Yeah.
Even
So
though I do it like crazy.
It's one of those things where if we could just say, hey, let's pay the state reps a little bit more, but the responsibility is all on them, right? Well, then you'd be beholden to the people in your community that are going to enlist you as their state rep or not. So, but yeah, you see a lot of ambition. People off the mics, off the cameras are like, oh, I want to run for this someday, or this is what I'd like to do someday. And I think everybody has that little glim in their eye, like I could run for Congress, and be set for life. So I was raised by an old-fashioned man.
Yep.
I was an 83 baby, but my dad raised me like it was the 50s. So, yeah, I guess losers went and worked for the government, and hardworking men worked for themselves. And that was my mindset. That was my youthful education. So you didn't seem to have, that parental influence on how to vote. My family did talk about politics all the time. And there are a couple Dems in the family. We love them. And they're old-fashioned RFK type of Dems, right?
sure, yeah.
The government shouldn't mandate vaccines. We should
Right.
close the border. They're decent, reasonable people. And one of them did donate to me, which is surprisingly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, we don't talk about everything,
Yep.
and we don't intentionally go to fight.
Yep.
But there's pro-union and anti-union at the table, and we just talk about it as we play cards, and no one's gotten in a fist fight.
And I have to clear up something to make this clear for you listeners that sometimes get this wrong. When I say a lobby, I've given money to a lot of politicians, both nationally and this, and I can honestly say there's never been one phone call that I ever asked them for anything. My company gets zero from the government. It can't it benefits nothing from the government, zero. So the only thing that I will do is I've been very clear about this is that I will say, listen, please make all your votes that go towards freedom. You saying? So when I look at we all have personal issues that we love. Why do they give RFK money? Well, I gave him money for 2 reasons, just to be totally transparent. Number one, I totally believe in, he's actually covered the number one issues. People who knew me and just drove the over-spiritualized Christian people wrong on this way, where the fact that's like, what I mean by that is like church people like going, a lot of people have like say abortion's the number one issue. I tell you, I have a very strong belief in that way, but it's not even my top 10 issue for me. But the devastation I've seen from vaccine damage and see, obviously, you know this, that's mine. And I've never experienced it personally as far as my kids that way, but you will give your money to what you believe in that way, and RFK is probably the strongest on it that way. And I literally posted that I gave RFK a bunch of money. I even said here, I'm showing people, I'm not a party person. Christian people lost their mind. They lost their mind. And I said, well, who are you behind and why? And once again, they started to cry. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have any response that way. Then why are you arguing about issues that I know that I'm fighting for freedom? So when I say I lobby, is I give money. I can't benefit from the government. My company can't. We're not involved in anything where they can give us anything that way. And so we don't lobby for insurance. We don't do insurance stuff that way and stuff. So I want to make that kind of clear in that way. So just because I'm very clear about defining things and stuff, that's so we know it that way.
Right.
So, but it's based on issues. You're saying it's based on issues. So.
Hang on, I want to know, because you homeschool.
Yeah.
How do you talk about politics in your house? Because if you didn't have that growing up, are you flipping that switch now and talking to your kids a lot more as they're growing up? Or is it part of your curriculum at all? Like, what are you guys doing?
So my oldest is about to turn 13. So we'll begin to add that most likely in, because quite honestly, being a product of the public school, we touched on, some of the Constitution. We touched on some things, but it's not something that I feel that I'm even comfortable in the education piece of. So I definitely want to add that in for them. And one of the nice things about homeschooling that we have done is they love to watch the Tuttle Twins. And there's tons of controversy even around that, but they watch the Tuttle Twins. So they'll get snippets of things from watching that. And I have the history book and everything on that, like the real 1776, like history of America. So we will add that in. But they have watched like when the election had happened, they watched some of that. But we don't watch the news in our house either.
Right,
So they don't
No.
see any of that, like media influence, if you will, because we just don't turn it on. So yes, it will definitely be something that we will have discussion on. And, like my kids form their own kind of opinions based off of, what my husband and I discuss,
Do you guys discuss politics like around them? Maybe not
yes.
with them, but around them?
Yeah,
So is that where they're picking it up?
my husband and I'll have discussions, but my husband is also one that he just doesn't have an interest in even. So if I see something or, read something, he's just kind of like the whatever. He'll vote in the presidential election because I'm like, you get your ass to that voting station and you go, why? Doesn't matter anyway. And I'm like, don't even. I don't care. Just go do it.
No, it does matter, and even if you think it doesn't matter, you need to go
yes.
vote anyway, because that's the only way that you can prove crap's going on.
Yes.
But see, this is really
Yeah.
that one statement by your husband, right? And this is not a gender-specific statement, right? It's not just primarily male saying, "Well, I'm not going to vote because what does my vote matter anyways." But when you look at this, it's a relinquishment of his right to be able to influence a major aspect of our society. But how this trickles down in so many aspects: spiritual leadership within the home, or spiritual development, or whatever you want to call it, right? And I think it just gives us an easy out. We can just disconnect because we don't think our opinion matters. We don't think we're informed enough, or we're not educated enough spiritually or politically speaking, or to be able to really add value to a conversation. So therefore we just check out and we just relinquish control. And I think that, going back to the comment you made, Dr., saying, we're not supposed to talk about these things. We're told not to. I think we actually, it's okay to talk about these things as long as you agree.
Right. No, I think. I hope you didn't get my statement wrong. No, we're
No,
we're
I'm
supposed
just,
to talk about these
no,
things.
we're supposed to,
Yes.
but I think that we've become very comfortable with talking about politics, or we're comfortable talking about spirituality or other things as long as we agree.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
disagreement.
It's the disagreement that's hard.
If we can agree, then we'll talk about it all day long.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas, whatever. If we agree,
It's an echo chamber.
It's the disagreement, and the person who disagrees is the one who feels the need to silence themselves and not engage because they don't want to be ostracized, they don't want to be challenged, or they don't want to be told that they're wrong for having an independent thought process, even if they can actually validate it with absolute critical thinking that supports their disagreement. And that's sad.
Elijah, what you got?
I was just going to say to Ashley's point, like, you don't let the kids watch a lot of news. It's frustrating because I keep my 9-year-old daughter all summer. Like, we don't send her to a sitter, so she goes to a credit union for a tour, and she goes and farms with me, and she goes to the Capitol sometimes, right? So I have to turn off talk radio because how sick and grotesque this world is, because they're talking about, whether it's phone calls about the Green Bay High School that's considering letting a biological male play on the volleyball team. I mean, it's just so crazy. Our world's gotten so bad, it's like hard to shelter her. So giving you credit that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me interject, and then I want you to continue running this. I think that moms have too much influence on this, and I think it's destroyed it. I think it's really destroyed this. Is the fact that we have to stop protecting our kids from all the bad shit out there. Because here's why. Here's my theory on this, and I want to hear your opinions. I want you to continue on this thought. I think that you're supposed to make your little boys' lives tough and teach your little girls that life is tough.
Yeah.
Because, man, it's like with my nephews, when I'd be walking along them, I'd automatically push them down. I'd knock them over. And I'd say, life's tough, get your butt back up.
Yeah.
And and as a protective male, we're supposed to protect females, regardless of what the culture says today, is I prep my daughters that the world is a bad place. Yeah. We sometimes get in our echo chambers and be like, and I think that, and it's really funny. And I know last podcast, I knew that the husband was going to be ticked off after I was kind of talking to his wife, not about her, she agreed with me, stuff like that, but it's like, it's really funny. I want you to think about this, and this is something that Ashley said. I'm a little disappointed the fact that Gary would say something like that, because you know why? Then you can't bitch when your kids come home and are influenced because you're not the influence. And see, I'm the kind of guy that, because in this way people think I'm angry, upset, or mean, I'd be like, dude, get off your dead ass, stop watching the Packers for 3 hours that mean nothing to your life, and teach your damn kids. Because then you can't come to me later and say, I can't believe my child did this.
Yeah.
The one thing I know about you is if Travis came home and do that, you would have whooped his butt. and you wonder why he turned out so damn good.
I used to have a little thing. Travis remember this. He came home with I'll simplify this side of the story. He had a scuffed up knee. He knew it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Oh, my knee's hurt. And I said, stick out your thumb. I got a hammer here.
Yeah?
We'll give you some real pain.
Yeah.
And he knew I would never do that, but he knew that I wasn't going to worry about a scuffed knee.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other choices I can't repeat.
We've gotten it to where, and I think we become such a femme-centric. I think the church is nothing but femme-centric, period. Because as I said, you don't see, I always said, if a man preached like you're supposed to in church, most people wouldn't show up anymore. Because it's like compassion, caring. Listen, that's at home. That's with a mom. That's not real world. Do you understand? And it's like, and then that's led into here. I always said, if women were not involved in politics, there would be no Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, you should say that for one of your statements. So when you started talking to Kurt, when did we all get so soft, right? Like that's basically like,
Yes.
So
Hang on, this is going to be good. So sit toward your microphone.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
far
so
away.
that's gonna be good.
So for me, like I said, my dad raised me where, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll stick my foot so far up your behind,
Yep.
your nose will bleed. So not a lot of stuff. My dad
my
would
dad said
call
that.
the veterinarian for a sick cow, but wouldn't call us for like stitches. They'd like stitch us up themselves, right? So very old school, which is fine. I turned out pretty normal. The problem is, I think men got busy or too entertained. I think it's both.
Thank you.
Let the woman kind of take the role of primary educator and influencer. And it's not, I'm not blaming women. I think God made women more maternal, which is more caring and compassionate. I think that's 50% of what it takes to raise a good kid. Sometimes my wife has to remind me, hey, they got feelings. Come on, settle down. But when it's 75, 80%, a feminine upbringing, then it's
There
too
you go.
soft,
Yeah.
including boys, men.
Yep.
And so I asked my Democrat uncle, like, why do you think these 26-year-old kids that still live with mom and dad? He's like, my parents made it so miserable. Moving out at 18, life was going to be easier.
Yeah.
So I'm not raising my kids soft. My daughter definitely outworks most kids her age, if not all. She's already driving a tractor. She shovels manure with us. And I kind of want her to be a little scary, intimidating to the boys by being a better shot with a gun.
Yeah.
So she's
Good.
already killed a lame rooster. Like, she like really
Yeah. is
is a good kid. Very proud of her. And I think she'll scare a few boys away because she's going to be so competent in so many areas. But yet, I just hope she's not too redneck and doesn't get married. So there's a fine line there somewhere.
She'll scare
But-
the soy boys away. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
that's what I'm hoping. That's the goal. So we'll see in 20 years. But yeah, I think that's where it began. I think it became like a 80s, 90s, and it's just worse now. I'm not saying there wasn't weaknesses in every generation. There's a lot of bad people in all generations. There's pedophiles forever, but now we get to see every case on every TV, or you know what I'm saying? So evil in society has just been exploited, and then I think it's causing moms who are naturally doing a great job, but that extra content drives them, not all, some, to be fearful. So then you get the helicopter moms, and now you have kids that can't ride a bike without a helmet. And my old man said, if you need a helmet, you're doing it wrong. So
Shouldn't
it's
be
like,
riding a bike in the first place. Yeah.
so there's a balance there, but we have gone as the pendulum way to the other side. And in politics, if it just saves one life,
Yep.
you're never guaranteed tomorrow, people. Like, I could die driving home. That doesn't mean I shouldn't have come here.
Yeah.
So I really, truly believe, they say, I've heard this, the songs and social media, like the big influencers are after alpha males. Not all of them, but a lot of them, because these young boys are craving a strong male figure.
Sure they are.
Yeah.
Isn't
they-
there a saying that's like, weak men create hard times
Yep.
create strong men create easy times, and then there goes the cycle.
Cycle.
Yes.
So are we just seeing a super amplified version because of technology and population and where we're at? Or are we more frustrated because we are the strong people? I feel like I was stronger than 99% of the men during COVID. That's very frustrating.
Well, it's biologically not even good for you.
I would
Well, it's
agree.
not.
And that's why when some people say like I'm a misogynist, once again, I won't even look up the terminology because I think it's ridiculous in that way. But the idea is this: I'm like, no, listen. Do you understand? If you don't connect to women, they have to deal with stress. They get sick. They get physically sick, and the man can beat the crap out of himself, and he actually can still stay very healthy. And so we have to get back to that male and female role that way. But the idea is this: and Elijah, running your point this way, is I think that. I don't think they say that that we've gotten soft as a generation. I don't think that's true. I think that what happens is we haven't defined what masculinity is, and we haven't defined what femininity is, and so therefore we've been. I would love what you said this way, and I tear on this because I want people to understand that if you look at history, does anybody understand the history of the Colosseum, the Roman Colosseum? It was to distract the peasants how bad their life really was. Look at the history of it that way.
Yeah, that part, yeah.
Okay, and now if you look this way, what's the difference of the stadium sitting over off of Lombardy Avenue? Let me ask a question: how much money you guys all make off that? None. Do you say? And so I mean this way, it's like so. I would want, and so if you think this way, and if we can distract men and say, this, and go to work, this, and watch the news, watch TV, and they're not sitting there training up their kids. Because here's what happens: is I don't believe it's 50-50 in a home. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because here's what happens: this is I'm more like an 80-20 because on the fact that, like I said, every one of you guys know this. Not one of you guys will if you don't teach kids that life is tough and make your boy's life tough, what they'll do is they'll blame their childhood why their life is rough later. But you ever notice this when you grow up and go, no, life is tough. You don't sit there and blame your childhood for all your problems.
Yeah.
And do you understand? And you think of it this way, and here's one thing I don't know if stats, because remember, I'm a big stats person. This is great. You know how right now you see us on media channels right now about, Jon Stewart did this. And this one politician, oh man, I'm sorry. I will never be a politician, but I'd be better than Trump, okay? But let's do this. Jon Stewart, you ever want to come with the gun thing about kids? There's a lot of kids that die of guns. That's not true, okay? It's suicides of 17 and 18-year-olds. If you take when they use that stat, they use 18-year-olds. Since when are 18-year-olds classified as children? And since when is a 17-year-old a child?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So they manipulate those stats and everything that way. But the idea is this: is I think that until we are, we should teach our young girls, say, listen, it's tough out there. Because if you're tough out there, because then what they would look for? They'd look for a masculine man that's ready to go to battle.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Instead of watching the game, you are the game. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I won't let men around me not do that. The women around me, I'm going, listen, I don't want my women that work in my company to stress out. Do you know why? It'll make them sick.
Yeah.
So it's like, just some thoughts on there that you
I've
guys
never actually heard that before. What's the science behind that?
As far as what?
Where stress will cause women to be more sick, but men like
Here,
biologically
watch
can
this
handle it more
simple
naturally?
biochemistry. If I attack you right now, what happens to your testosterone levels?
I'm sure they go up.
They do.
Yeah.
Which cardiovascular protective, muscle growth, things like that.
Yep.
Now let's take these biological women here. If by nature that they have testosterone, but it doesn't affect them the way it affects us, even physically or mentally. Now with them, they will be dominated more in some estrogens and progesterone. And so if their cortisol levels go up, it's directly connected to progesterone, and it will drop that down, which low progesterone leads to infertility, depression, all the other cancers and things like that.
Wow.
And so that's why that book right there, I disagree the way that women aren't meant to handle stress physically. They're not meant to do it that way. And if you actually understood that biology of it that way, and that's why I don't believe it's going to piss people off. That's why women should not make major decisions, especially in politics. I watched Nikki Haley last night. I'm going, I wonder what time she is on her period right now. Because you know why? Because their biology fluctuates. You're married, right?
Yep.
Do you think your woman is the same all the time?
Nope.
Thank you. It's biological. They can't be.
Okay.
Because their hormones fluctuate every week. So that means they're physically and mentally different. That means a cyclic woman is going to make different decisions from week 1 to week 2 to week 3 to week 4. That's why as a man, you come home to 4 different women through the month.
Wait till they turn 45.
Yes. Yeah.
And the word no becomes
Just teasing.
very popular.
Yes. No, but do you see what I'm saying? And see, so that as a protective male, and so that's why it's like, and so when I see a male not train up his family and protect his wife and protect his daughters, and teach my daughters, listen, the world is rough out there. It is. Yeah. Now, I don't want you to handle that stress, but you have to understand it, because then what's going to happen is this. Then these feminine women would look for good protective men. But then they'd go, and I'm sorry, I mean this sincerely, somebody show me, the church he worked at, the church I used to go to, we had a discussion the other day. Show me a strong man out of that church. Couldn't name one of them.
Yeah.
Can't name
You're
one of them.
definitely got to be the best example for your kids.
That's my point. But just in general. And the women today now, it's like women today, you see a strong man, it's like now all these, I tell men, get your mind, muscle, money together, be a strong man. Man, you'll have women run after you like crazy.
I'm so sick of the soy latte pussified beta males.
Yes.
And I will say, like, like you were talking as far as, the whole political aspect of my husband, and not really having that interest in politics. But, like, COVID really brought out the manly side of him. And, like, that was when we purchased guns. We taught our kids how to shoot. We have one daughter in a sea of boys. So we are raising boys. Like, you're going to learn how to shoot a gun. You're going to learn how to do all of these things, and you're going to work hard. You're going to be a man of your word. You're going to have integrity. So that is one of the core things that we really hammer on in home. Like, there's no question. Like, life is tough.
Yes.
And we have those hard conversations. Like, we are living in a society today that, our daughter being 8 or just about 8, it's like, okay, dressed modest. Don't dress like what you see on YouTube in a short clip or whatever it is. Like, cover up. Wear a one-piece swimsuit or a long two-piece. But it's like, there are people out there that want to harm children, period.
Yeah.
And we have those conversations of, I refused during COVID when we traveled, to put a mask on my kids. I was like, I am not going to mask them because somebody could snatch you when we're at a truck stop or whatever, and I wouldn't freaking know it. So I was absolutely not. It's not happening. There is no question about that. So we teach them life is hard.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
It's not horseshoes and rainbows.
How do you teach girls? I have 2 little girls.
I have 4.
Yeah. I'd like to hear your opinions.
Yep.
About, there's predators and creeps. I try to just use the word creeps when I talk to Ayla. So, like, she went to Bible camp for a week. And this was at the time in the news where someone in another state had brought, like, a 10-year-old girl to another state to have an abortion. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yep.
So I'm like, golly, she's 8, now she's 9. She needs to at least, like, keep an eye open for a creep, right? Like, teach her how to protect herself. I don't think I did the best job because I didn't want to, like, go through the birds and the bees. Like, I want my wife to, like, introduce that stuff. But how do you guys present as parents for a little girl how to stay away from a creepy individual? Is there tips or tricks or things
Last
or
one, start with you.
principles?
Well,
Start with you.
start with me. Well, I'm a divorced father. 48, divorced 4 years ago. I should know this state like the back of my hand, but I don't. So it's 4 and some change, and it's been really different because I have a 12-year-old. Right? She's got 50% in one home and 50% with me, and she's coming into those formidable years. Well, she's 12 years old. She's a preteen, right? But what's crazy is society doesn't care about the age of your child. And they're getting inundated with information left and right. They're hearing all of this crazy talk about pronouns, and, about who's going to, all this stuff, right? And to kind of get to this is when, for me, I had years ago, my ex-father-in-law, when we were starting to talk about our kids going to school. And he was a big advocate for sending them to, Christian school. And they're like, you're going to do this? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm going to send them to public school. Well, why would you do that? I mean, liberal this, and, you can't control this, and the educational system. I said, well, number one, I'm not sending my kids to go and be influenced. I'm sending my kids to go and to be influencers, and I'm going to raise my kids, and I'm going to pastor them. I'm going to engage them on the topics that are coming into my household that they're potentially hearing. So I constantly engage the conversation. I never looked at it as something, well, I want my former wife to be the one to have the difficult conversations about the birds and the bees, whether it's with my son or with my daughter, right?
Okay.
I want to be fully engaged in what the community is trying to put in front of my child. I thought to myself, sure, I can send my child to a Christian school, but that doesn't mean that bubble in which they grow up in that educational system is going to prevent them from when they go out into the real world, whether it's college or to get a job, they're going to get smack dab right in the face. So I wanted them to be able to be in an environment to influence it and walk out their existence to get the why behind they believe what they believe, why they treat people the way they treat people. And through all of this, especially with my daughter, is starting to have these delicate conversations of what it's like, number one, to be around other individuals at 12, 11, and 10 years old who are already beginning to think that they are potentially identifying as the opposite biological makeup that they are, or that they're saying, well, I'm gay, I'm a lesbian, whatever, and they're 10. How do they know this? Well, they're having conversations with their parents. So then I have to engage this. And, I believe that, even if she's having these conversations with her mother, she's getting information there too. But I will not give up that conversation to somebody else. So I dive into the immediacy of it and to talk about it in a completely appropriate way, 10, 11, and 12, and get her to understand the why I think the way that I think, why that we think the way that we think, so that I can equip her with confidence, because part of it's confidence, instilling in them the confidence, but why we're not going to, when a teacher says, no, you don't have to call me Mrs., or you don't have to call me Mr., you can call me, no, you will call them Mr. So-and-so. I don't care that they've given you that right. Maybe when you're 14, 15, or 16, that can change, but I'm dictating the conversation. And I think it's the uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable to engage some of these topics with your daughter. It's a lot easier with my son. A lot easier with my son, the birds. But I already had a conversation about my daughter's body changing and talking about her hormones changing and potentially up and coming to when she's going to have her first period and what that's going to look like and feel like, and talk to your mom, because I don't know. I don't go buy these things for myself. So where do you start, right? But I'm not afraid That's
Okay.
if I relinquish that and I step back because it's uncomfortable, somebody else is going to have the conversation, and they're going to have no problem telling them something
Totally different.
that's not congruent with what I would want for her. So
Yeah.
I think it's just I'm dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
She can talk to me about anything, which means I can boldly and comfortably talk to her about anything.
And I think, Elijah, you talked about this before, defining conservative, coming back conservative to where we came from. I think God created us to be protectors and providers.
Yeah.
And so therefore, having 4 daughters, and I want you to think about this, and my daughter and I literally talked about this about 2 months ago, and she goes, Dad, that was a great way of doing it. I said, no, I want you to think about this. As a having daughters, obviously, it's going to be different than having young boys and young men. Because we know the violation of a girl is going to be more detrimental, than the violation of a boy. If a boy gets sexually abused compared to a girl, they're both devastating, but it's worse with a little girl, okay? But I want you to think about this. So my daughter, it's quite interesting because I'm so surprised, even with Christian parents, that they let their kids go over to other kids' houses and don't know the parents.
Oh,
Or,
yeah.
do you understand, most sexual abuse and all things happen with sometimes people you know.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we don't have to even talk about the Catholics, for Christ's sake. Do you understand? About what they did to people. But the idea is this, but not a joke. You think of it this way, it's like, and so therefore, my kids were not allowed to go over to kids' houses until I gave them enough age or reason to go, okay, listen. And then on top of it this way, if there were a single mom, my daughters never went over to the house. Ever. Now, and if they had a dad, and if there was a married couple and there was a dad, guess what happens? I had a conversation with dad. And I told my daughter, so that they knew walking in a scenario that daddy was protecting them. Now watch this. So then my daughter, so what kind of man do you think my daughters are going to look for now? A protective provider. And so therefore my daughter stayed with me through college in our house by her own choice. She 18 made a day. Then guess what happened? And this is where Christian people should love this, but obviously I'm in that same camp as this. But now what happens is, guys love youth, purity, and beauty. Well, she saved herself for marriage, and guess what happened to this? And she got married at 20, and then I, once again, gave her away to him during the ceremony to a strong man. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so she went from the protection of daddy to the protection and providing of a great man that's been trained by me for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that. If you think this way, that's generation, that's legacy, and you wonder why your legacies could continue that way. I think we've lost that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now Trinity's like going, oh, Dad, and she's a senior right now. And speaking of that, and right now Trinity's making fun of a teacher because remember I always teach my daughters, respect your teachers, don't listen to a damn thing they say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because even at our Christian school, which just because it's Christian school doesn't mean it's great. Mm-hmm. A lot of these teachers are just as bad as the public school ones. Okay, but here's what happens. So last year they were teaching. I think you just heard the story. Last year they were teaching politics wrong in the school. Mm-hmm. I called the headmaster. I said, "Your guy's a moron." And then and I confronted him about it, and he's like, "Oh, I'm teaching it wrong. I guess I teach it different." It's not a joke. Mm-hmm. And so now my daughter was this literally because she started school yesterday. She's like, "Dad, I had to sit through that moron." Do you understand? Well, that's disrespectful. No, it's not. She respected authority in the thing, but we have to let people know sometimes they're morons. You understand? It's not a joke. We've lost this aspect. We talk about men. Men have stopped saying, "You're an idiot. Shut up."
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think it had more impact that you made that call versus a woman making the call?
I would never want my wife to make that call.
But just in general. Of
course it does, because you know why? If I call up, the headmaster fears me more than my 110-pound blonde wife. Mm-hmm. You understand? That's what I didn't mean this negatively when it comes to politics. Yeah. 50 women show up, 50 men show up. Sorry, it's a different atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's even a little bit of fear involved.
But it's so sad that 90% of the things I go to, it's predominantly women.
Sad. But
why do you think that is, though?
Well, I know why.
Well, I know, but
yeah, I'd be interested to hear your theory. I think with COVID, right, that brought out the mama bear, right? So they're kind of more there to protect their kids. In my family, it's the men that are into politics. We'll talk about it for hours, and the ladies will talk about whatever they do. But I really don't know why. I feel like maybe the guys that I represent or know, they're great providers, good protectors, and the rest is up to mom.
Okay,
right?
but But do you think the mama bear came out because the masculine man wasn't there?
That's
There.
true.
It said,
Protecting and providing might just be a really nice house in the suburbs.
Right.
And going
Because-
out to eat on
yeah.
Friday night. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're defining
we've
terms.
actually accepted the most low value of a man, period.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? We have. I mean, sorry, almost every man's fat now. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like we've accepted mediocrity of men like crazy now, and you wonder why we're racing to the bottom.
The bare minimum has been
Yeah. I mean, women are
Equalized
excited because,
and
like,
normalized.
this guy, I'm like going, no, my goodness. And it's really sad. And it's like, when you, here, as a man, when you decide to get married, you've taken on responsibility. You now, it's really funny. If you think about it this way, do you ever notice this? Do you know that the same outfit a man wears for a wedding wears for a funeral?
Usually.
Because you know why? There's
Yeah.
symbolism behind that. There's history of symbolism. Guys, gotta be a sense of history. There's a symbolism because he actually dies that day. He says, I'm going to die and get rid of watching the Packers because now I got to provide, protect, teach, and do all those things. I die to those sinful ways, and I'm not going to sleep with 300 women anymore.
Yeah.
I die to all those things because now I'm taking on that thing. So that's why they wear an outfit, they wear at the wedding, they wear a funeral.
Die to self. No, that's cool.
And so,
Yeah.
so idea is this: there's symbolism behind that way. But a white woman's wearing white dress, purity. She's happy. It's all about the bride. Cool.
Yeah.
Because the guy's like going, great, show her off. I gotta get my ass back to work now. You saying? But I think what happens is, and this is where it's kind of interesting. I think, and I'm not being negative about this, but I don't trust a guy that surrounds himself with women. I don't even think men and women should be in church services together. I don't think men and women. Do you understand? You guys all know this. When women get together, they act different than when men are around, and men get together, they act different when women are around. And it's okay. We can't even have those discussions anymore. Ladies, sorry. We say the most disgusting things when you guys are not around. I don't care if it's a. I
Pure
don't care if
innocent
it's.
either sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
I know, but here's the point: is this, and that's okay. Our discussions are extremely different than theirs. So I have no problem looking at a guy and just saying, "Listen, dude, I'm sorry. You're not teaching politics. Sorry, you're not fulfilling your duty." Because you know what happens is this: then you can't bitch when some. You know, it's really funny, and I've said this. If another young man looks up to me instead of their dad, I'd be embarrassed as that dad.
Yeah, of course.
I'd be embarrassed as that dad. So I don't, and so when you decide to get married, there's a certain responsibility that a man has to have. And the church used to represent that kind of teaching. It doesn't anymore. I'm sorry. It's become so femme-centric. That's why women show up to church, and that's why women force men to go to church, because there's no preacher up there speaking like I am and going, dude, God's called you for a duty. So turn off that damn TV and start teaching your kids that guess what happens? There's people that want to steal your freedoms, to have your gun, to say your words, to take your freedom this way. Because, you know, when mom does it, it's not as impactful. Here, watch this. What's one of the most terrifying things a mom can say to a child when dad's at
I'll
work?
tell your father.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My mom broke spoons over my butt, and I was like,
I know.
you know what I'm saying? Do you follow me in that?
Our famous is, I'll go wake up daddy.
That's the
Sure,
point.
yeah, sure.
And no joke, but see, that's the thing. So so the concept of, like the guy says, that we women, and women people realize, women, you hold the key to sex, which is everything to us. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for sex, most of us wouldn't even get married. And that's the sad part is, you're giving up that key. And second of all, but men hold the key to marriage. Do you know what I'm saying? We really do. We're the gateways. You're the gateway of sex. We're the gateway to marriage. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's why I said, ladies, you give away your key to marriage just by what you do with the size you're doing today. And the thing is this, is that I would say, so if I had a son, but I do have a son now, son-in-law. And I always said, I don't want him looking up to me. But you know what the sad part is this? It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Because most men are not teaching their boys to become men and what to do when they decide to do those things.
You know, kind of going back to, talking about the creeper,
Yeah,
educating, the daughter, right? I kind of look at a lot of these things, the things that I feel uncomfortable talking about with my daughter,
Yeah.
that maybe this should be your mother, or maybe
I
this
know,
should
right?
be your
That's why I
youth
asked the
pastor, or
questions.
should be your pastor, makes me cringe on the inside, because I don't want somebody else to be the expert in such a crucial area.
She's a daddy's girl and comes to me for everything, so that's
So
where it's
you-
like awkward because I don't have the same parts.
Yep.
And I'm glad women are the most beautiful. They should be the most honored. But I also am so glad I don't have to bear children. So
Yep.
I'll take the trade.
But
I'll be an
you-
uglier,
Yes.
smellier
Yeah,
male, right?
but I
We
think
did our part.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
and it was fun.
Your part was a
It
square.
was fun.
do you have granddaughters?
I have, well, yes, I do one.
I
And,
mean,
uh,
as a grandfather, hearing a dad and another dad, how do you think we should be stepping into that space with a young girl? Talking about the need to be aware of predatory, creeper,
she's sitting here.
you know what I'm saying? But you come from a different generation.
I grew up free range. And for those that know what that means, when I ate breakfast. I lived near Coburn Park on the west side. Mom said, my dad went off to work, good guy. See you at noon. And so if he got beat up at the park or wherever went wrong, he didn't get beat up too often. I usually could have been the guy to do the beating. but no, I didn't do that either. I'm a decent guy. But yeah, so we lived. This is a different culture. I'm watching neighbors down the street. We have a swimming pool in the backyard, and we put it in. It's in a smaller it's a nice subdivision, very nice subdivision, but it's a smaller lots. I thought every neighbor is going to be gawking at us. We're in the pool today, not a great day to swim. Wasn't one neighbor around, not one kid outside. School hasn't started. They're all like this.
Yes.
And they're all doing this stuff. I make our grandkids go in the water when they come over and do active stuff. And then maybe once in a while they say things that are stupid or do things that aren't quite right. But you have to make mistakes. I don't know how you guys raise your kids today. There's so many perverts out there.
Yeah.
And everybody's afraid to turn their head the other way because my kid might get picked up by a van going down the street.
Yep.
And I'm kind of I'll call myself a King David Christian. A lot of people don't understand the Old Testament very well.
Yep.
I know we need to be forgiving. It needs a position of power.
Yep.
But when King David attacked a civilization, he killed thousands. He did it by sword. You don't kill them in 5 minutes with a sword. It takes days. And the blood runs deep. And they made a decision, and God allowed it because evil had to be dealt with.
Yep.
Our culture is not dealing with evil anymore.
That's the point.
Right.
Yes.
It is not dealing with it. And I watch videos on YouTube
Yep.
of, I think, around 10 million Chinese soldiers that are ready to fight today, and they have testosterone.
Yep.
And they ever start marching to with the West Coast, they take us in a day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't know it. We just give it to them. Our culture's in trouble because of evil
Yeah.
and because we aren't men to protect our women and protect our country.
That's funny. So I have two boys, and they're
Yeah.
6 and 8, and they can be best friends, but they also can be boys and brothers
to.
and everything. Yeah, but they will pick on each other or they'll beat each other up and stuff like that, and then it's inevitable that one of them comes crying to mom that the younger one teases the older one slaps the younger one comes crying to mom, right? It's classic. It happens
Yep.
all the time. I've actually started with my kids now, getting both of them to come over, and I'll, figure out, what actually went on and everything. But I've stopped even yelling at them for hitting each other, and I just tell the younger one now, look, if you do shit like that, you're gonna get slapped in the real world. And I would rather his older brother was hitting him up when he's a kid and teaching him something than him going out and learning that in the real
Well-
world. And so I'm just letting them do that now.
Well, in the fiber is, and here's what happens. And if you don't do that when you're young, if you don't make a young boy's life hard, what happens this? See, because what happens, moms sometimes too much raise boys and say, you're awesome, you're great, you're this, this, and this. And they get an unrealistic aspect of value in the real world. And then they go out to the real world, and the real world says, you ain't valuable for shit. And then they depend on the government. And then this, and that's why it's so easy today to sell boys on Democrats. Not from the standpoint of the, a political party, just saying, well, if it's not fair, we'll make it fair.
Yeah, I think they
You
see
saying?
the government as dad, right? Because the broken homes,
Yep.
lack of immaculate. So, whether it's single moms or people
Yep.
that need the money, the assistance, and some are justified, some are just lazy and abusing it, but way too many people are looking to the government for that father figure.
Which let's
And
do this
it
now.
Okay.
But
Because
that's
here's what happens. I
across-
got to get. No, we're going to start with you on this.
All right.
Because you set us up for the second question.
All right.
Because
Let's go.
it's an hour and 20 minutes worth of your first question. Because it's going to surprise people. And on this one, not with me though, but probably the extreme I am on this. But here we go. Government should not have any involvement in healthcare.
Okay. I guess I disagree some
Okay,
because,
explain.
I want a licensed practitioner cutting me open, right? I don't want anybody with a sharp scalpel saying, "Yeah, I can take out that kidney stone." I don't even know how kidney stones are removed. I just think,
Just go heart surgery.
it should be minimal. It should be way less than it is. The way this country has been ruined from your generation to ours is so many federal helping programs have come with so many strings attached that now you have to name your pronoun in the survey and tell the nurse how many guns you have in the house. Now that's all BS, and there's way too much government in the doctor's office. But to say none at all, I think that's too much. Just because the state gives out licensings for, I think, all of your, if you were a nurse, right?
Well, that's interesting topic.
Yeah, we can talk about it. They're a terrible department, but yes, was it Department of Health and Safety? Yeah, it's
and how
slow to the licensing.
And see, that's where Republicans always fail.
Yeah.
They always have a but,
Yeah.
and they can never define where it goes. See, because here's what happens. I mean, think about it this way: my sister, who is a hairstylist, has to get licensed for it. How stupid are you?
Yeah.
Sorry, and what they do, and on top of it, here's what happens too, and all the money given to healthcare isn't given to people like us.
Yeah.
It's given to the people that lobby and ask for favors back.
Yep.
I think is anybody surprised that Pfizer got all the billions? They're the people complain about fuel. Healthcare is the largest lobbyers, period. So I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat on the fact that when you're getting big money from this way, it's like this. I kind of laugh about it this way. You know, if you look at BlackRock and you look at Vanguard, they own the majority stock in most companies across the world. That's 10 trillion. So they're playing everybody. They own Democrat things, they own Republican things. They own Facebook, and they own biggest stock still in Twitter and stuff too. But here's the point. It's like, so that's the thing. No one can ever define that realm. And so it's like, because it's always like this. They always say it's just a little bit. Remember, let's go to history. Let's go to history on this. Taxation. When was taxation? And when was federal income tax implemented, and why?
Is it the 60s?
No.
No, it was earlier than that. What, like 19?
The World War. And their basis was we need to fund the war, and then we will stop. And guess what happens? And I'm going to piss off the Packers again on here.
For 0.5%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the Republicans fought and said, no, we need to keep it so we can do the library and do this stuff. I don't care about the library. Don't give a
Goes
shit
to a
about the library.
library.
Right.
That's the point.
What's a book?
No, but you get my point though. See, that's the point about it. So that's why it's like, and anything that do you understand is this? Anything they regulate always gets worse. And that's why, and here, watch this. And when government money is given to something, there's no progress. Do you understand if you look at some of the things that are not regulated and also are not government funded or even healthcare involved that with government, LASIK eye surgery. It gets cheaper, better, more efficient, everything that way. Don't mean this in a negative way, cosmetic surgery. Do you understand? And I always hear this. I always hear the same argument. Well, you're going to have a bad hairstylist, and they're just going to hurt somebody. If we could just save one life, if that was true, thousands and thousands of kids
There's a
die.
big difference between hair and the heart, right? So,
Not really, not at all. See, that's the piss poor argument.
Yeah, I disagree.
That's the
but-
piss poor argument because where does this stop? Here's what happens. And if I make a consumer choice to not investigate who I'm going to, then you're the idiot.
Yeah.
Do you understand that here's what happens this? It's no different than this. You started to show off with this, that you think taxation is theft.
Yeah.
So all I have to do to eliminate my competition is go to you and say, we got to regulate these people.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
then
you're
what
totally
happens?
right.
Because
That happens all the time.
then you
Yes.
can't compete. Because
Yes.
then you can't compete. So what is the difference? See, that's the thing in politics. It's like going, no. The minute government gets involved, government actually. Does anybody know this? Do you know constitutionally the federal government only has 5 jobs?
Yeah. I know defense.
Yeah,
is one.
5 jobs.
Yeah.
5 jobs. And when was the last time you guys voted for the director of the CIA and the FBI and things like that? So the guy that sent the guy to my house, the FBI, to intimidate me and stuff about standing against COVID. Well, I can't vote him out of office
Yeah.
because it's not even legal.
It's an appointed position, yeah.
Yes, but see, a sheriff has voted.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? See, if we don't understand these things, so I'm teaching my girls, these kind of things, and if we don't teach enough people this way. See, so coming back to this, let's go on, and we're going to come back because I wanted. That's why I came with this question. Government should not have any involvement in healthcare. Agree or disagree?
I agree.
Okay.
And
Why?
I think, well, as to go on to that comment, the interestingly part is I chose, and I think God put me on a path to be unregulated. I am unregulated. I have a natural health clinic. I've seen over 4,000 clients. I currently have 1,000 active clients. I'm not regulated by anyone. So when COVID came down, I never shut my doors. I never put a mask on. There was nobody saying, well, you really should do this, or we are going to recommend this. I mean, I answer to no one. Never hurt anybody. People have been helped in that way. And you know, so the interesting, right? Do I want to go to somebody if I'm in an acute situation and I don't know who they are? But I'm probably going to think about these things beforehand. And I think the amount of people getting hurt if it was 100% private would be way less than it is now.
Right.
I mean, legal drugs kill more people than illegal drugs. So I think if we completely backed off and it'd be a little Wild West for a little while, but you'd have people like us who would come through. And honestly, if people just came to us first, they wouldn't hardly ever need the other stuff.
Agree. Ross, government should not have any involvement in healthcare.
I agree. And I think just based on experience for me when it comes to where I began to really start to think differently, you know, our whole perspective started to change back when we had our son, and then when we had our daughter, when we started to make the decision to not vaccinate. The kind of kickback we would get, you know, more or less from schools, you know, all the red tape, you know, having to provide documentation for this. And if you don't have it, you need, it's like, no, it's just a choice we're making because we are choosing to walk down this path to not vaccinate our children anymore. Then I started to see it even more when we were struggling with, you know, conceiving, me not struggling, but my former wife, you know, when we had Maya. Some of the stuff that we started seeing, because she was born way early. Well, you saw her, you know, she was 4 pounds, 8 ounces, went home at 4 pounds, 4 ounces, and they started, you know, pushing their agenda for all the shots she was supposed to get. And I think it was like a Hep B or Hep C or whatever. And she wasn't even at the weight limit, but, you know, this nurse was just...
And she wasn't a prostitute yet either.
No, right? But she was just adamant.
That's why Hep B shots are given to prostitutes and IV drug users. That's why the joke is.
Just adamant, but she didn't even meet the weight criteria. And we're like, no, we're not going to do this. And then the conversation turned into, well, you're just, you know, this right-wing thinker, and it's just all about money, and we're trying to, and we're like, no, whoa. So just, it was more about just more control and trying to force their opinion or this big pharma mentality. And I just, no, less and less and less, please. So I don't want their involvement in anything because this is our decision. You're taking rights away from me.
Dana, government should not have any involvement in healthcare.
I would agree with that. Here's the thing that I think about with this is that if we got rid of government involvement in healthcare, then I think that pretty much overnight, everybody would figure out exactly what they needed to do to be healthy. If you took away,
care a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, they'd start to care, and they would figure it out very, very quickly. They would figure out who was actually advocating for their health, and they would figure out that if they just kept going to the medical system, that they were just a customer there, and a perpetual customer who just never is actually getting healthy again. And I think that, you know, if we got rid of, like, you know, the Medicare and the Medicaid, I mean, those target older or lower income people, which tend to be the people who need the drugs or who need assistance in paying for those. And if we got rid of those things, like I said, those people would figure out how to get very healthy, but also then your younger generations, I think, would come along with that because they would see, oh, like, I'm not going to have anything handed to me or paid for when I get older, so I better start doing something about that now, and then we could instill those things a whole lot younger. So I want to see it gone.
One thing that people know is I posted a graph, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and does anybody know since Obamacare got implemented, the top 5 insurance companies have profited more than they did the past 10 years before?
Yeah.
Jamaican. And see, that's what I said, because you know what happens this? It's just, you know, they go and people don't realize that a lot of insurance companies don't want Medicaid, Medicare away because they're the major funders of it. The government is. And then that's where high prices come from. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I kind of giggle when they're like right now buying saying, we're going to force these lower drug prices. No, you're not. Not at all. You're saying, just, you understand, it's consumer demand. It's capitalism. If capitalism was there and government wasn't involved, guess what happens? Here, and even today, it makes government regulation much easier not to be there. Do you know why? Because you can put a message out there about any company really quickly within seconds. See, before, you know, 100 years ago, they could say, well, this doctor was a snake oil salesman. Do you see him? And you couldn't afford the printing press, so no one found out. Today, man. My goodness, you could get a message out, and negative news flies faster than anything. You know what I'm saying? You really could. And so it's like, so I think that, that's why I believe in capitalism, because I tell people that's why when I give money to a politician, do you understand there's nothing a politician can do for me? The reason why we went from $500 one to a massive international company was just based on pure, okay, we're gonna give a good service, and if you like it, you'll pay for it. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a little theory. It says, in God we trust, the rest pay cash. You understand? Not insurance, not government, not stuff like that.
Yep.
And for some reason, God keeps us letting it get bigger every year,
Yeah.
even through COVID. Ask you which God, I believe that government should not have any involvement in health care. What do you think? Agree or disagree? And if you agree or disagree, please explain.
I agree with that. Now that we don't, as a small business owner, we don't carry insurance for our family. So my kids don't go to the doctor, they come here. Like, it's a different mindset, but knowing the ripoff of the healthcare industry and the damage that they cause, yeah, they're just creating more customers, is all they're doing. And I have this conversation with Gary all the time of, okay, we can pay $1,200 a month for a family of 8 for a $15,000 deductible, or we can take that $1,200, come and get the testing, the supplements, the consults, all of those things. What am I paying $1,200 a month for? For something I'm not going to use or have an intention to use. So it's just, when you look at the money that goes into the healthcare industry and the corruption behind it, no thanks. I don't want a part of that.
All right. Kurt?
Ultimately, I agree with you. Unfortunately, the train has left the station, and until our country goes bankrupt, which is not too far from the future, will end. I say the same thing for Social Security. I used to chart my pension, investing I used to do, versus how much was put into the Social Security system. It's almost exactly the same when I retired. I get double from my pension, and they did a bad job investing the pension.
Right.
So it's the same when the government takes over, and then of course you croak, it ends. And so the government gets involved in the long run. And I had a friend recently that passed away. He had a heart procedure done, and I have a relative that was going to have the same procedure. And after that individual died, she decided, I'm not doing that procedure. The doc just lost a little bit of business. Like you say, bad news travels fast.
Yep.
And
It does.
And he's a good doctor, but what went wrong, what happened? And he was older, had a heart problem. But like you say, bad news travels fast. And if he's a snake oil salesman or whatever, he'll be out of business soon. And unfortunately, the government has taken over the business, and until what's $1 trillion a year now to Medicare? I mean,
No, it's 4.1 trillion
is it,
in
it's
the United States
ridiculous.
alone.
Yeah, it's
Well,
what's-
that's why a lot of people say to me, they'll talk about, I watch the Libertarian and the Republican side and complain about certain things, and I watch the Democrats complain about certain things, and they talk about, oh my goodness, our military is too big, and there's corruption involved, and the wars are started. Do you understand? There's only $777 billion in defense. There's 4.1 trillion in healthcare. What do you think is more corrupt? And I said, and I tell people, over the last 3 years, if you have not believed that there's corruption, then guess what happens? I'm at war with you. Do you understand? So then, Elijah, let's do this then, because one thing I will say, another guy that, Shay, who I absolutely support like crazy, and he's a big fan of yours, so then, and I've watched your voting history from day one. I've been very, very pleased. Now, remember, what made me very pleased is you've always voted into the relevant of when you had a chance to vote for freedom. You always did.
Thank
You
you.
know what I'm saying? And just like Shay, that's what I don't care what people say. I look what they check in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I've seen that way. So, and the nice thing is this, and I've always said this, and I believe you're gonna agree with me on this, but I want you to share with some of the colleagues that you've dealt with that way. I've always said that just like we used to have a criteria for being able to vote, you used to be able to be a landowner. I don't believe you should be able to run for any position, even a school board, unless you owned a business.
I do like that idea.
Because
I really do.
because
yeah.
here's what happens:
Yep.
if we ran our budget the way we ran this company, you know what I'm saying, then we'd always, and the concept of a surplus is always a big lie. There's never a state that has a surplus. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you can't, when you get federal government money and stuff like that, and it's a big lie. I mean, it's just all, it's like recently, get this, they did a drug study with Lipitor, and we reduced the heart disease risks of 50%. And the stats were there was a 99% rate of survival, and they went down to 98, and it went to 99 after they took the drug. And they said, well, if you take, it was a 2% difference, and there was 1% there, so it's 50% increase. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But guess what? They didn't talk about the 5% of people that have massive damage from everything from Alzheimer's, impotence, hormonal problems, things like that. They didn't report about the 5%. They say it's just 5%. Here's 50%. See what they do for statistics? Yeah. It's the same thing. So the colleagues that you deal with and stuff like that, and do you ever see those issues? And if they did own a business, that they would approach?
I mean, it is funny. There's like 99 state reps in Wisconsin. You have 64 Republicans and 35 Democrats. And I think only one of the Democrats owns a business. We have ex-veterinarians that ran their own, business. A lot of supper club, bar owners, right?
Yes.
And so there is a lot of good entrepreneurs. I mean, the speaker still runs a business. It's a packaging business. And so I'm one of the smaller businesses. There's a couple of huge farmers. There's a couple of guys that have over 1,000 cows. A couple more that have a couple hundred acres and do, like 40, 50 beef. So it's encouraging to see on our side of the aisle because there's a lot of common sense that flows.
How many lawyers?
Only one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Now, one in the Senate and one in the Assembly, both Republicans. Huge advantage because you're trained for, your master's program on how to read it. And I'm just like, the bill summary makes sense to me, but then the other 10 pages is in that legal jargon that I think purposely doesn't make sense to people. But I do think about these constitutional amendments we just voted for last April. You're reading them and you're like, do I want people to go to work or not? Like that's what it should read. But instead, it's a whole paragraph. And by the time you're done reading, you're like, I don't get it. So it's an advantage to have a lawyer too. The caucus does hire an extra lawyer, but along with my colleagues, I know our side of the aisle would be pretty fine with that, being a state law because 2/3 to 3/4 of them have or do own a business.
Yeah, because I think it just gives them a different perspective.
Oh yeah.
It's like
you're responsible for others, right? Yeah. Like if you're terrible, these people are going to start losing jobs, money, and their kids. Yeah. You take that sense of pride, but also a sense of responsibility of I have a great reputation for cleaning houses and businesses, so I can provide a half a dozen people jobs, right?
Yes.
I love that. But if I start no-showing or getting lazy, and at least with my style of business, when the boss isn't around, sometimes the production's not as high and the customers might have more complaints. And so I do try to stay really engaged. So yeah, I mean, I own a small farm, small cleaning business, and a legislature. And I like doing that. Like people that, voted me that you're still cleaning. Yeah, I'm still cleaning. Like that's going to keep you grounded, right?
Sure.
So I love that. And I'll stop when I get old, but I got a good 10, 15 more years before I
Well, you
stop
may not always
cleaning.
be in office either. You
That's
need to
true,
have,
yeah.
You need to have a career.
Absolutely.
Not a political
I
career.
know. Yeah. That is
Right.
about. I will say because when I,
Term limits.
yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. In Wisconsin, both sides of the aisle, 23 out of the 99 seats turned over. Now that's a little high, but it's usually like 15 to 20. We definitely need term limits in D.C. Absolutely, they've made a career out of it. But in Wisconsin, because it's a $55,000 a year job, you're not getting rich doing it if you're doing it ethically. So there is a high turnover. You can run for a judge and make more money. District attorney, like there's so many other jobs, even if you want to stay in government, that makes a lot more. So my staff in the Capitol, God bless him, an awesome staffer, but he makes an extra $5,000-6,000 more than I do, which is fine. He's there 5 days a week answering the phones, but to be a state, it's technically supposed to be a part-time job. And some states like Michigan pay $80,000 and they try to make it a full-time job, but it's the right amount of money, I believe. Because you don't want slimy people that just sitting around living off the taxpayer.
And there's no retirement with that either of any kind, is there?
No, there is. You do
get
qualify.
a little bit of something.
Yeah.
Well, you should get something. You gave up other years.
I think it's all different between like the water department and any other government worker. I think obviously politicians, after 5 years get a part of that state pension.
Right. Well, and it's kind of funny. People don't realize this. Does anybody know where the richest part in the United States is?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, by far.
See, and that's why when you talk about lobbying and stuff like that, I don't believe there should be any money involved in politics due to the fact that if you have a message, it's going to resonate. You see, and they're going to come to you that way. Well, we got to get a message out. Well, guess what happens? And because here's what happens: that whenever there's involvement or things that happen, there's going to be a form of corruption. It's just the nature of most people that way because they're selfish and stuff. And the sad part is this though: but everybody sits around and is okay with it. See, that's why when I tell people, I'm like, I'm more mad that you're not mad.
Yeah.
You saying? I laugh how
Have you
people.
made the T-shirt yet?
What's that?
I'm not mad that you're not more mad. I mean,
I think I got another one.
I think so. Because people might come up to a lady like her and be like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
You know.
Well, when you think of it this way, is like if you just look at the things that affect everybody's life, those 4 topics. We're gonna always talk about this podcast that way. I'm just surprised that people, and I'm always hard on this, but I'm like, and the people that are supposed to have the good news, the truth, and some understanding is actually the Christian community. You know what I'm saying? Because I love Jesus with all my heart and soul, and I'm going to chase him the rest of my life. But the idea is this: but aren't they supposed to be the ones fighting for good?
Yeah.
And what are they doing?
Sitting on their hands.
Yeah, it's funny though. But what's really funny is this, and you said this. You're watching the way you equated, and all you guys respond this way. When they said, "Oh, all the kids are stuck here," they're also stuck watching the Packers on Sunday, and you're okay with it. See, do you ever notice this? And I did this on a train this morning, and Kurt, I want you to speak on this. If you didn't grow up with something, you actually either fear it, don't like it, or you think it's evil. John, when the cell phone came out, it's like everything. If you're at church, when the internet came out, it was Satan. It was going to destroy everything, and the TV. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already hear this bullshit. We hear this from everybody. You know what I'm saying? But it's funny how you guys all responded this, but I see people glued to their television watching something that makes no difference, but people are critical when I say that. I'm like, well, what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? What's the difference between social media and watching a football game?
We tell our kids
There's
that.
not.
Yeah, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
I'm like,
It's a distraction.
Is absolutely a distraction.
It's a distraction. And I think that, and it's going to sound funny, and maybe this is just me. I think it's more of us 4 men have a responsibility to put our foot down than as you guys. Do you understand? Because get this. This is quite funny. I always say this, and this is why. If a business has gone woke, okay, you know what that really is? It's just bringing the feminine into the work world. Femininity in society is destructive. Masculinity in society has built it. Femininity in home is actually where peace and stuff comes from. Do you understand? And if you think of it this way, if you look at what happens when we don't have the guys stepping up, then the women have to move into that masculine role. And how you guys like that? Ashley, do you like being a masculine role? Do you agree?
No, because my damn kids don't listen to it anyway.
Well, just like I said, if there's 30 women outside, I'm not listening to you.
No,
You
no.
understand?
It's no. There are things that I literally rely on my husband for. There's no joke, because he's stronger. It's just that masculine role.
Yes.
And I mean, there's even some of my boys that I'm like, hey, I need you to do that for mama, because I can't. Like, it's a reality. And I would rather be in that feminine position.
Thank you.
I have zero desire to be in a man's role.
And I'll come back to you too, but I want to ask you a question on this, Elijah, because I think of this, and I'll come back to you in a second here, okay? Would you agree having a clean business, or even in construction, would you agree that being competitive, which is more of a male characteristic, is a good or bad thing?
I think it's good, and I do think it's more of a male.
Thank you. And do you understand that being a male is only acceptable in sports today, not in business?
I'm such a small business, I don't see it as much.
Well,
but
watch this. I have enough money, I'm going to create a competitive business against you that way.
Yeah, the wellness cleaning service.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to use better
Clean
cleaning, I'm going to use
products.
non-toxic,
Yeah.
and I'm going to come in. But here's what happens this. Now, you would have aggressive,
Yeah.
laser focus,
Well, I'm just
all these
gonna
massive.
undercut his prices.
Thank you.
Yes.
See, but that's my point. That's not, and see what happens this. Now, a mom would say, oh, but, there's enough for both of you. Fuck him. He's not paying my bills. No, you get my
It would
point, though?
damage our friendship. I am going to say that.
That's my point. But that's my point. Though. But that's a masculine
Yes.
thing. But a mom's like, no, you both get
There's
it.
a lot of money in Green Bay.
And if you
You'll
think
be
about it this way,
fine.
it's happened in politics. It's happened in corporations where it's like they tried to bring the feminine into a man's world. I'm sorry, ladies. Men build society on those characteristics, and you bring those feminine. That's why they want, and that's why I tell people, that's why women want equal outcome. And that's why you hear all these people involved going, well, they should have an opportunity. So that's when should you have an opportunity? Competitive takes away. Yet competitiveness in sports, now watch. Women started to move and control sports. That's why it's like everybody gets a participation pro trophy.
Well, it's also like weird and perverted. I want to get to you, but
Yeah.
so if so my premise, your premise of femininity
Yep.
is ruining things in our society, but yet we're taking biological males and these like
Yeah.
Karens are like
Sure.
okay with biological males getting into girls' sports. So
I
it
know.
is so like
Makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense to me. So it's like I don't even want to call it like it's a perversion.
No, that's psychosis. See, why can't we just say you're stupid?
Yes,
You're
yes,
a
that is
dumbass.
crazy. Yep.
See,
agree.
I don't know why we can't do it, and who should be leading that charge?
Yeah. Us.
I'm sorry, our churches. Do you understand? It's really funny.
you're right.
Do you know that all hospitals, what they usually have in the first part of their name, Saint Vincent's, Saint Mary's, they were nonprofits started by what?
Catholic nuns.
Yeah, churches. See, it used to be a community built around. I mean, even if you look at what happened, even constitutionally, how we're set up, we're based around community, and the community wasn't built around a business. It was built around what? A church.
Yeah.
And then and the Amish still live this way to where if all of a sudden someone has problems, house burns down, something goes bad, need help, money for healthcare, some of this, the community would come together.
You didn't
I-
tax anybody for it.
No, they just knew that they wanted their community to be there. And I mean, this is serious. A lot of people don't know this. That's what I do here. People have financial things. This. I'm there for them. Not their church, not their parents, I'm there for them.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And because I take that thing seriously. And believe it or not, I got that concept from our history.
Remember the Ivy League schools, how Christian they were, and the same value system?
Thank you.
Now they're atheists.
Yeah.
So it's totally
But see,
reversed.
because here's what happens this. Because the masculine role of saying, you're a dumbass, because a mom doesn't speak that way. But when women have to speak that way, they feel out of character because the guy's not doing it. So, what do you got, Dana?
Okay.
And then we're going to go to Alex after.
Good. That's what I'm doing. We need to listen to Alex talk for a little while because, okay, so you own a business. You're a woman who owns a business, so you have to be masculine when you're there, but you have two boys at home and you're a mom, so you need to be feminine there, but dad's not always at home. So how have you been able to play all those roles and balance them so that you're doing the right thing in the right time?
I'm going to answer it.
No.
She's been
No, you're
stressfully.
not. No, you're gonna let her-
stressfully.
no, you're gonna
There you
let her
go.
talk.
Stressfully. That's I know. I want her to talk.
And
but
then,
stressfully.
what about, you need to talk about abundance
Scarcity
and,
abundance.
yes.
Okay, so going back to how do you deal with being the masculine and the feminine in this world? So if you want to create a business and do these things, I agree that if I stay on this trajectory, my brain will be mush.
Thank
my
you.
body is already struggling,
Thank you.
carrying extra weight, right? All of these things. I love what I do, so I'm trying to do it in a way that is less stress, awareness, alignment, action, right? Having the awareness of exactly what I'm doing, knowing when I'm in the feminine, when I'm in the masculine. That awareness does help. It does help
Yes.
you manage that, being aligned when you're doing it and understanding if I'm in the masculine. And I just had this conversation with a woman in leadership who interviewed me about how to teach women in leadership, and I was like, you teach them to act like men. And
Yeah.
she was kind of like, what? And I
Yeah.
was like, no, like I run my business like a man would run his business.
Yep.
If I'm not profitable, I'm not helping anybody.
Right.
So awareness,
See,
alignment,
she sounds
action.
like what right now when she
A
said
man.
that.
Yeah,
And it's
man.
competitive.
Yeah.
A man.
Yeah.
Do you see
Absolutely.
that? She does. And that's a great thing because that
Yeah.
will make her. That,
And you know what?
so-
My parents, like you met my dad last week.
Yep, fantastic.
I grew up. I played junior PGA. By the time I was 12, I was rated in the state for 18 and under. I played on the boys varsity team all 4 years of high school. The players were great. The coaches were dicks. It was an interesting experience, but it was a lesson to me in life
The
of
world.
how to do things. And then, just the nature of my relationship over the past, I would never say anything bad about my ex-husband, but when he deployed 6.5 years in a row, it created an extreme independence in me. And now here I am. And so teaching my boys, they get it, they get things from both ways. I don't filter anything from my kids,
Yep.
which you could argue is like, maybe I'm a little too extreme, but I grew up fast. My kids will grow up fast. I think I'm okay. I think it's serving them okay.
Yeah.
Agree,
And when you look at things, I love how you started last week saying we're going to talk about the rules, not the exceptions.
Yep.
And one of the things that me and Dana are sitting here listening to talk about competition, we have this idea of scarcity and abundance mindsets and saying the reason that we as moms can tell our kids there's enough to go around is because we just believe that there's literally enough to go around.
Right.
But
Yep.
that's just making sure our kids don't have a scarcity mindset, but making sure our boys are competitive. But we are the exception, and so we
It's
can't
that-
say
exactly.
we are the exception. So I wouldn't argue with your point at all. I would say, however, that if you're in a scarcity mindset, along with that competition, you are doing a disservice to the idea as a whole. But
Yep.
that's a consciousness thing, not
Right.
not masculine, feminine.
So, Kirk, question for you because you were a successful football coach. Okay. What was your demeanor? What was your language? What was And Travis has told me some stories, so I just wanted to see it's good stories.
Actually, my demeanor was I always was a teacher.
Yeah.
I used to try to teach them 3 things: alignment, assignment, technique. And it amounts to what you're just saying. What's your assignment in the huddle? I'm an offensive coordinator. What's your job? What's your alignment at the line of scrimmage, or maybe you're a defensive end or something? Are you outside the tackle? If you maybe over the head for football players. And then what's your technique? How are you going to get around this guy? How are you going to block him? What you're going to do? And you have to understand these concepts in life and business. If they screwed up, I'd teach them 2 or 3 times, and then the backup went in.
Yep.
That's how it works until they figure it out. Because I also knew that this guy's a great athlete. If he wants to be on the field, he's going to have to learn. But I never really ever screamed at anybody. I just said, your actions will prove your abilities, and if you're not good enough, I can remember one time in a game we had 2 black kids at Green Bay West. I was coaching there at the end of my coaching career, and they're both sophomores, and they're both about 280 pounds.
Oh.
And they were heavy, sloppy, 280 pounds. Okay. And I decided one game, because they didn't do very well offensive line, I said, I'm making you the fullback and making you the tailback. Now, the average line on the JV team is about 200 pounds. I said, let's run some dive plays with these 280 pounds. After about 4 plays, and they did very well, they were totally gassed.
Yep.
Because they're big and they're fat. But they learned a lesson that you have to work. And the backup running backs who were fumbling, they were embarrassed by it.
Yep.
And but that's how I used to coach. I didn't scream at people. I instructed them. If they didn't do their job, you're off the field.
Yeah, you made it hard.
I made it hard for them.
You made it hard.
And there are
And it's-
consequences.
And that's why I think when kids or even adults still to this day play sports, see, I'd rather see a person play sports than watch sports. You understand? Now, obviously, I'm big. If your kids will sort of be a big supporter, that's a whole different thing. That way. But idea is because sports can still teach you lessons of the real world.
Yeah.
You understand? In both women and men, it really can. You understand? Because we're all going to enter society. You understand? It's just that I believe that our parents are supposed to prepare kids for society. So when you, I think people do this though. I think it's we so protect ourselves from our language. Say we have to stop this. For example, if you spank your kids today, there's a defense mechanism to say, I give them a spank on a hinder. I don't beat them. I say because we always talk about everybody wants to bring up the exceptions, not the rules. Because you hear about the person that beat their kid, abused their kid like crazy and stuff like that. And that's what we talk about okay, guess what? The person that had the surgery, and so therefore, if we can just save one child, well, vaccines kill kids every single day.
Yep.
But guess what? No, not vaccines. We're going to create an act that they're protected and government pays for all the bad stuff when it goes wrong. Do you get my point? See, so their arguments, it has to be universal. It can't be just distinguished. But see, you even protect yourself. You're like, I'm tough, and then you have to say but I think they'll turn okay. See, we protect ourselves from talking that if we're tough on somebody, it's going to destroy their life. Subconsciously, it's their childhood traumas.
Well,
You're saying, I'm like going, yeah.
So for me, growing up in the 80s, I very much parent my children the old school way. Like, if you're going to be a dumbass, let's be real,
Yeah.
I'll call you on it.
Yep.
If you need a whack, you're going to get a whack. And like you were saying about your boys and the fighting, I'm just like, peace out. No, figure it out. And I think Gary sometimes gets more protective of their crazy boy adventure than what I do. And I'm like, you did the same thing. I'm like, you did the same shit. Why are you worrying about it?
I know.
Like, they'll move a trampoline and jump off the roof. And
Yes.
like, what are you?
being a boy.
And he'll say something about it, and I'm like, whatever. Like, they'll climb a tree. Okay, figure out how you're gonna get down. Like, my kids are adventure, and my mother-in-law actually did at me not very long ago because Mikey, our oldest, had gone to the corner, and you've been to our house,
Yep.
so you know that we have a very long driveway,
yep.
and then there's another corner, one of the cross streets, and we live in the country, so we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
He did some art, and he was standing at the side of the road selling it, and I was watching him from the house. He had a cell phone and an old school flip phone, and she's like, he was out there by himself? What if somebody took him? And I'm like, I was watching him the whole frickin' time. He's fine. And he made $30. Like,
Can I ask how old he was?
this just happened a couple months ago, so I'll let 12.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just like, they
Not
and
3.
no,
Pretty
and
reasonable.
they recently just like, okay, we want to sell stuff. They literally have a yard sale sitting up in my yard. I'm like, okay, whatever, price it how you want, sell it, like, just okay. So it's such a different, like, the mindset of, oh my God, somebody's gonna take your kids. And while yes, I have that minor fear within there, just because, you know, there are creeps out there. But at the same time, I'm not going to shelter them because of a fear. Like, the Bible teaches us, I don't give you a spirit of fear,
Yep.
right? But a spirit of faith. So it's like, I'm watching them, they're fine. You know, I want them to be adventurous and learn the hard way of people aren't always going to be nice to you, or, you know, sometimes people suck.
So this is fun for me because we kind of probably have some similarities in our family. Well, I don't have 7 kids, I have but I do a lot of the just letting them go do the thing, and I'm half watching them when they're outside, just you know, kind of making sure they're maybe not too close to the road, or because we actually live on a busy road. But I think it's funny because you, as the mom, you sound like you're looser with them than Dad is, and I'm definitely looser with our kids than what Dad is. I am. I pretty much let kind of like anything fly at this point. But why do you think that is? That's so interesting. Because why isn't the man the one saying go beat each other up?
I think, well, for me, I think it comes down to because I'm outnumbered. So in my house, because I have the 5 boys and then my daughter who, oh my gosh, wow. Anyway, she very much is a lot like her mother. Anyway, I think it's just because of the fact that I'm outnumbered. So I learn to pick my battles. I really do. And if it's going to cause me to go off in a tyrant, I'm not doing it. Like, no, I check myself out of it because it's like, okay, you're boys. You have to figure out how to problem solve with each other. You don't need to kill your brother, but like, let's just be a little nicer.
Yeah. Let's cool it on the tattling too.
And my husband, you know, he's working, he's providing, he's not home because of his particular line of work. So that responsibility of the home is on me. So like I said, I pick my battles, and I'm just like, okay. And then when he gets home and all hell is broken loose, he's like, what did I walk into?
But don't you think that when you came home, Dad's impact on teaching them is much faster than yours?
Oh, God, yeah.
And see, that's my point.
Yep.
See, it comes back to, it's really funny. My time, I mean this very sincerely, my time is more valuable. Let's say I was going to give advice of business because what I'm worth financially than somebody that is broke. And because why? Because my words are stronger, my impact is stronger, what's going to affect your life is stronger, and compared to somebody that lives paycheck to paycheck. Okay, and the reason I bring that up about this is that's why when I think it's over exaggerated, because I think what happens, we talked about before in the podcast in the beginning, where it's like I went and made some money and then I protect and provide a little bit, and then the guys go, I'm done. And it's like, well, no, that dad just takes a little bit more time, because Gary could be like, sons, blah, 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 and guess what happens with the authority of his voice and things like that? They learn much quicker than mom yelling at them all day long.
And they do, for sure. Because if I'm gone for a weekend or any extended period of time, he's like, yeah, they're doing this now and they're doing this. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Seriously.
What?
Seriously.
Why can't that happen when I'm here?
So it's the same way with your kids.
It's the same way. They'll listen to Dad before they'll listen. I'd have to yell at him 1,000 times. He says one thing, and
so
now
why do
they're
you
listening.
think that is not just the deeper voice?
I think it's God inherent that. I think
it's that masculine essence that they're listening to, and
that's
they
why
know.
That's why I will not trust I can't even call him a man. I will not trust a male that surrounds himself and listens to women all the time.
Yeah.
I can't, because by nature, now the story I was going to tell before, I had a family member that was in prison, okay? And I'd go visit them, and we visit them every couple weeks or so that way, and I got to, and they'd line up prisoners, they had to do a roll call and stuff like that, I'd be sitting there for hours, and then I had the opportunity to speak to the family members, and the majority of the time was either a wife or a mom that came in, and I'd sit there and talk to them during time, and I'd be like, hey, what's your son in for, and stuff like that, and they tell you, and what do you think the mom would say? But he's really a good kid.
Wow.
We're in prison!
Yeah.
We're in prison. He's not that good. Tell him he's a piece of shit. Get his shit together. Do you see what I'm saying? But see, moms have a harder time with that because by nature, God made them nurturing, compassionate thing. And those qualities are fantastic. But guess what happens? If those things dominate, it's really funny. Look at culturally. You have fatherless homes, crime goes up. Mm-hmm. You have fatherless homes, that's why when the see it. So I think that if our, and I'm going to come back, I see as cool thing as this. I may have criticism of something. I may have criticism of politics, but I'm heavily involved because I believe it's an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I may be critical of churches, but I think it's an opportunity because you know why? Because then men like you and I and you can step in and go, all right, I'm not saying get rid of churches, I'm saying it needs to be revamped. I'm not saying get rid of government because I think government, if you know government, it's very valuable. It's extremely valuable. But stop just saying it's bad, start doing something about it.
Yeah, get involved.
But you know what happens this? Men get involved. Do you see what I'm saying? Men get involved. Because a bunch of men get together in that room and battle some things out. Some things are going to get done. You know what I'm saying? And believe it or not, no matter what women say, it's supposed to be war in there. It's supposed to be war.
And we're not attracted to you if it's not.
Thank
Exactly.
you. Are women
Exactly.
Well, it's the old saying. Sorry, it's not discussing. The old saying. Men. Women want the bad boy, or they want to sleep with the bad boy. They want to marry the good guy. Because you know why? Because the bad boy actually demands more respect. Women don't sleep with guys they like. Women sleep with guys they respect.
They think they want nice guys, but they really want good guys.
Well,
and good guys are only capable of peace because they're capable of violence.
Right. Well, what they want, the girl wants this. The girl wants the guy that's masculine, but then sit and watch a movie with him. You know what I'm saying? Which is cool, which is great. Like I said, just like a business. I always said this. If the Wellness Way was all masculine, it'd be Wolf of Wall Street. You know what I'm saying? And look what happened now to companies that have become more feminine. Everybody gets a chance. If there's a feminine cleaning company, you'll destroy them. See, it doesn't work. It doesn't society that way.
Yeah.
But I believe there should be kind of like an 80-20. Because now what happens is you have a 20% that has culture and has things to get together and things. I think it's fantastic that way. So it can't be one or the other, because that's out of balance. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at the balance of the family, you talk about it this way: Dad comes home, he's home for an hour, and that's why the concept of women today trying to make men second moms. Man, your husband should be off on adventures, doing stuff, dominating, look at a superhero that guys that way, and then guess what happens? And then Dad can still come home, being gone for 3 days, crushing it. And he has still more authority with one word than the mom did being there all 3 days in a row. And that's why I think our churches, and see, people like you have always given me hope, because you were that kind of man.
Well,
You know what I'm
but I have a theory on COVID.
Yeah.
Isn't God in charge of everything? Yes, he is. I think God allowed COVID, Satan, to sweep this world, that disease. In the church world, half the people left.
Yeah.
Why? Because there was
I
nothing
left.
going on in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to church, find a church that's preaching the gospel and preaching the
But
truth.
I don't think that
Yeah.
even before COVID, though, the church might have left, but the men weren't really present
Right.
in the church
yeah.
before.
But
No.
that was
It's
the
a little
straw
more
that-
exposed
what
now.
you
That was the
saw,
straw that did it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the straw that broke the camel's back in essence, but it was already a systemic
Yeah, what's
issue.
happening?
I'm sure you might have had husbands
Lukewarm.
attending, right? Because choosing their battles, right? And so they go home, but they're not engaged, right? They've kind of given the responsibility to the youth pastor, the children's pastor, to the wife or the senior pastor to be the spiritual authority. I'm not saying leader, right? It's different, but to be the authority in that arena to develop your wife, to develop you spiritually, or to develop your children spiritually. I'm giving you this responsibility because you're the professional. You're you have all the education and you should be the one doing this, not me. But that trickles over into every other aspect
Of life.
as well. The educational system. Well, I don't know history, right? Well, I don't know this, or I don't know that. So you take care of this. No. I don't know politics, so how can I teach my kids? Get involved. Become
Part of our
informed.
culture is interesting thing. I've studied the Bible for 40 years, almost 41 years. I still learn something new every day. The concept of Christ crucified will always be the answer to your salvation, the blood that he shed that's applied to your sin. But God made it so you'd study it, look at it, to know him and have an intimate relationship with him.
Yes.
Very few people do that.
Right. Well, because
Yeah.
they're distracted.
We've complicated
Exactly.
Christianity,
Yeah.
first of all.
Yeah.
We've complicated spirituality,
Yep.
period. We've made it into something that disqualifies anybody that doesn't potentially have the title of pastor, elder, or whomever, or through your years of service within the church to prove that you could potentially stand up and preach. We kind of disqualify people from the ability to have the right to pastor my own kids,
Right.
to pastor my home, to instill into my kids a way of thinking about approaching politics or how to approach, even sexuality, period, or healthcare. Because I'm not an authority.
Yep.
And we then, as men, we do check out because we don't want to be told you suck or you don't know what you're talking about. So then we just check out, and then we let.
Well, no, I say this. I'm going to correct
Let women
this.
take over.
I
Well,
say
no, there's
males
no-
check out because men don't.
No.
Men love a
you
challenge.
can correct it, but I'm just saying
A real man.
Thank you.
a real. But men will check out. So
No, what do you call them? What kind of boys check out?
Soy latte pussified beta males.
There you go.
You know what?
there's still male in there, so that's still
Yes, male.
men.
One of the problems you have, there's so many,
they're not-
I don't know how your daughters have made out. I know you have one or two that probably aren't married yet. I'm
One
not
married,
sure.
yep.
For a woman today to find a decent man that's a real man is difficult.
I
But
tell
then
my
she's-
wife that all the time.
But she's
Yeah.
also got,
Someone that you can trust to
but she's
find.
also got to be willing to allow that man to be found. Instead
Yeah,
of we have
yeah.
so many women today that are operating in the masculine.
Yeah.
Yep.
That when they are operating in the masculine, it's kind of a turnoff
For men.
to the men.
It is.
And it's not, they used to say, well, you don't want a strong, confident, because it's intimidating. No. Maybe to some guys it is intimidating. It's not attractive.
That's right.
And it might
Thank you,
be
Ross.
kind of partially attractive, but it has a shelf life.
We don't want to marry a mod.
Yeah.
that type
Well,
of thing.
because then when the shit hits the fan and stuff starts, and the woman wants to be protected, and maybe, but he's not there, but you chose him.
Dana,
You're-
Dana, tell them the 3 S's we came up with.
This is for women, by the way. There is sexy, and wait, did we go with supportive?
Yep,
We went with supportive
Instead
And-
of
Submission.
Instead of submission, which is just a subcategory of that,
Yep.
honestly. And serene.
Yes.
Because she needs to bring peace to the house. My hair keeps getting.
Yeah.
I think of that in my situation, like being single and 38, and like most men are just probably like, holy shit, right? But like I met a man earlier this year, and like instantly in his presence, I was like submissive, and I was like,
I say.
Yeah.
I was
See,
gonna-
that-
I was going to
exactly.
it can awaken that
I-
mood, though.
so-
yeah,
so-
and but it has to be the man first, right? And then the
Correct.
woman
Because-
responds to that.
Alex,
not
Man
the other way
leads.
around.
I've known you for a short time now, so I'm going to disagree with you on something. Because the minute you met me, and you met the alpha of alpha males, just by nature.
Okay.
Just by
Going
nature.
super real with this
Okay,
time,
no.
man.
Come
No,
on.
but I watch this happen all the time. When you are a real man and woman, you became very feminine. Because when a real man shows up, a woman moved to that role very quickly. They've even done this. If you put 6 men and 6 women on an island, they'll take their gender roles very quickly to survive.
Yes, they will.
And see, so I'm
Feminism
sitting there
doesn't
going,
exist
let's
there.
get back in the damn church.
That's human nature, though.
That's my
right?
point. So but God created. So let's get back in the church saying. That's why I tell people. I've said this, and we're gonna have one of my.
I don't
and
wanna
you
go
met
back in
Pastor Ryan. No, but see, I do. You're saying I do want to go because I want to go back in the church for one basis, and I'm anti-church
it's
right
like
now.
attendance.
I'm anti-church right now just because I can't find. I haven't found one pastor that I really go sit and listen. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the opposite. I'd want guys getting together, and I said this. I said if I was preaching on Sunday, I'd raise a hand because here's what happens. You know this. And you have daughters. You don't want another child, so you want a man that's gonna be able to support your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're a man sitting in church, I'd be like, all right, ladies, raise your hand if your husband's broke and you can't support your family. And I'd look at the guy and say, get your ass out of here. You're not honoring God by this woman stressed out and you can't provide for her. Get your ass out of here. And come back, you saying, when you get your shit together. People say, oh, no, they got your shit together there. No, you're not even going to tell them to get their shit together.
What are they doing with what they're getting there,
One of the
first
reasons-
and foremost?
One reason Donald Trump is hated, he's an alpha male.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Big time, and they don't like that.
exactly.
And he's smart. And he has this mistake. He's in love with himself a little to some degree. But sometimes maybe that's what you have to be. To
I
get
say,
the job.
I love myself. I'm absolutely amazing. Ask me, I'll tell you all about myself.
Well, and I will say too, like, and I mean, this is when we came to you for Gary.
Yep.
And, like, because at some point him being such a strong male, and then all of a sudden, when he was sick, I knew it. So if you recognize that if you have a masculine man and you recognize, okay, there's something off. I feel like I'm married to myself. And I mean, I told him flat out, I said, you get your shit together or like this cannot continue, because like when he is in his most masculine self, he is chasing after me. I mean, and that's what you
and
teach.
it's alluring.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And honestly, and I tell him, like, that's what I want, but to a degree it's like, dude, slow down, like just back off. But it's that healthy version of that male, and that's what they're supposed to be like, not this checked out.
So Ashley, let me ask you a question on this and be honest with you this way. Do you want to be the person to tell your husband to get his shit together?
No.
Thank you. And that's my point. And see, that's why males need other males without women around. Because I have no problem looking at any guys my employees say, get your fucking ass together.
I think it's great.
Yes,
I love what you're saying, but until that part of our culture is actually changing and moving in that direction where men see the value in having other men around them, you see it because you've been living this for how many years? Most men right now do not have a culture of other like-minded men who have a backbone. So until that happens, it needs to be the wife that says, enough is enough, I'm tired. I don't want to have to be in the driver's seat all the time, making all the decisions, planning out. They have to, in that masculine state, do what a dad would have done. Do what another, say, you either change this or this is done.
I'd rather.
Unfortunately, though, that has to happen because this is a perfect.
It's not,
I know,
it's
but
not working. Because it's happening
I
more
know,
now
but
than ever.
after this
And-
podcast, though, we're not going to see a bunch of guys go, oh, I need to go out and hang out with the guys.
Well, no, here's what happens. But we have a politician here. And guess what happens? He can go
No
back to other people and say,
doubt.
hey,
No
listen,
doubt.
we got an elder here. He should go back to his church and say, all right, we're shaking some stuff up. He's got to do this way. Why do you think, and it sounds funny. Do you notice this? Do you know in history, see, I love history. Do you know in history, there was never a group of people that ever came up with something good. It was always started with one individual. Look at anything great in history, it came from one individual. It was never a group of, that's why when people say, we got to get, no, it started with one individual. And so I said, so if we're the people right now, if I'm the person one that 51st in Green Bay says, that we got to do this, that's where it spawns and go from there. And Ashley should be able to call me up and say, call Gary and kick his ass.
I don't disagree.
I called Travis.
Right.
That's right.
See, I
That's
don't
the point.
disagree with the idea of where it should head.
Yes.
I'm disagreeing with the idea that right now, given the current climate in most relationships,
I agree with you.
unfortunately, it is going to take the woman to say, you need to get some guys around you.
I'd rather have see that.
Or,
I'd rather say that.
but even if it comes, you need to get, it's ultimatums. Men will respond to ultimatums. Men will respond to, I either get my shit together or you're out of here. They will respond to that. That is innate on the inside of them. That's the conflict. That's the war. The problem is we've taken that away from them. We've neutralized the environment, and we've taken the ability for them to stand up and rise up because the woman is just taken on because they've resolved to, well, if no one's going to do it, then I'm going to do it.
And I think the reason that you're saying they can't be the woman doing that, you're saying, I get what you're saying because this is where we're at. But the core of the feminine is energy and radiance. The core of the masculine is clarity, direction, integrity, and presence. Those are not the same. So men are not going to take the direction from women. In the case of an ultimatum, yes, and maybe that's where we are. But men and women aren't supposed to communicate on that level. Men are supposed to be the mission. And so, but we've removed the
They're
brotherhood. So where you're
missionless.
saying is like
They're
now
missionless.
we're desperate. And so now the woman has to do it. But again, that's not our job.
Most
Right.
men are checking
Excellent.
boxes.
Alex, you sound so feminine. See? It's great.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're around alpha of alpha.
Strong men.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we've reduced it. I mean, a lot of guys nowadays they think it's just about providing.
No, it's much like we talked about before.
It's just I
I agree
that's
with
your
Russ.
home. The paycheck, but then everything else they've checked out because society has really done a phenomenal job at chipping away at the foundation of the purpose of men in society and the strength that they provide as father, as husband, as business owner, as business partner, as co-worker. We've really neutered the real amazing possibilities of a strong, confident, healthy male in society.
So, Kurt, let me ask you a question, because how long were you a teacher for?
Pardon?
You taught, right?
I
Besides
taught
construction.
as a Sunday school teacher on and off for probably 35, 36, 37
So let me ask you
years.
this, just simplicity on this one. Being a male teacher that compared to the female teachers, do you think that the kids, both the little boys and little girls, treat you different compared to a female teaching it?
When I taught a class, my most recent one, before I had this disease hit me, I'd have 3 times more people in the class when I was teaching versus the lady. And the lady was smart.
Yeah.
Probably smarter than I was.
Yeah.
But she didn't command some sort of authority that they didn't want. And I don't know why.
Exactly.
But what I always did with couples, and I always left an open forum like this to talk, and versus maybe this lady that didn't, but very nice lady.
Yep.
But I would say, for the most part, yeah, men, there's no doubt when our pastor teaches, if I was teaching opposite him, he has more wattage, his class would be 3 times fuller than mine would be.
Yeah.
So authority means a lot.
And what
Yeah,
is no
'cause-
longer really given to the teachers in schools today?
Authority.
Authority. Doesn't matter if you are a male teacher or a
I
female
got
teacher.
slapped by teachers.
You know what I'm
Just look
saying?
at-
See,
just-
because the power's been taken away
I
from
did.
them.
Just look at the Green Bay School Board. There was like the numbers are wrong, but 100 missing open seats. Most were teachers. I think they're down to 15 now. I saw this morning. Can you imagine the chaos of new teachers coming in and moving to here, moving to this school, and kids. I had really good teachers growing up, and they were disciplinarians, and I had 5 men and 1 woman. Woman was actually very good, but these men, if you screwed up, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no spitballs. So
Yeah.
that's what we did back when
And
I
then
was
we
in school.
allow virtual.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh.
So it made a difference, and in fact, as much as I love my father, we had our moments. He wasn't abusive, but we didn't always get along the way we probably should have. But he was authoritative, and I understood his position. I look back now, and I'm glad he did what he did. But I probably got more from a coach in football to mentor me as a man than he ever did. He was too busy fishing, and he didn't even realize it. He was a good father, but for the most part, I learned a lot. I wonder sometimes if I hadn't played football and gone through all the, and I mean brutal. I'm watching today. They got these guys out yesterday with the hot weather, and they got the water buckets. They used to put salt in our water.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Make you work harder,
these are brutal practices. If you did it today, you'd be fired. And I'm saying they probably shouldn't have. It was really hard in the kidneys and everything else you had to go through. But you became tougher people, and they can be competitive. I look at it now, and we're kind of rattling on here, but male figures do make a difference. And I think most of the spots, and I hate to be a woman trying to teach juniors and seniors in some of these classes in high school, especially in the big cities where there's so much crime and so much racial issues.
Yep.
I wouldn't even want to be a teacher.
Yep.
And that's kind of when I really go back. I don't want anybody else teaching my daughter
Yeah.
about some of these things. I want
Yeah.
it coming from me because really at the end of the day, I want her to trust me. I want her to have the influence of a strong man in her life. I want her to have standards. And I want to be able to talk about the issues that I know that schools aren't doing and the boys aren't definitely doing it. They've got other things on their mind. And other parents don't have the invested interest in protecting my daughter that I do.
I'll continue why I asked the question of how do you teach your kids about creeps. So, I mean, my mom, one of those like traumatic, and of course I don't believe in, being triggered or soft, but it was super awkward when I got the birds and the bees talk and my sister, like 15 months older than me, was right there. Like that was just weird.
Right.
I guess I would have been okay if it was just me and her or my dad, blah, blah, blah. So my dad, like your dad, just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
If all men watch their daughters, then we'll be fine. Like that was the way he parented. So I'm taking my daughter back from Bible camp, and I just want to like teach her to like keep an eye open for creeps. And I'm just like, some guys that are way too old to be playing with you on the playground might like want to touch your butt or say something nice about you. You do not
Exactly.
ever be friends with those people. And so she's like, "Well, you touch mom's butt," and I'm like, "Yeah."
That's a good thing.
We're married.
I got
Yeah.
to the whole we're married, it's okay, we're older, blah, blah, blah. So she just is like, oh, like after like 10 minutes of me trying to explain it without explaining too much, so like keep her innocence, she basically like, so you and mom bump butts? And I'm like, yeah, sure, honey, that's what we do. So I mean, she hasn't said it in a while, so I think she like forgot, but it's like,
How old is she again?
She's just now 9. This conversation was at 8.
Does she have any social media
No, no
platforms that
phone,
she's
no.
able to engage? Does she have friends that do?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's not.
See, that's where
Yeah.
that's where my heightened awareness increased, because I had found out that this was a few years ago, that my daughter was interacting with somebody that had a TikTok account.
Okay.
And then by default, my daughter ended up getting one, unbeknownst to me,
Right.
that it was okay by, the other parent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hell no.
Right.
Yeah.
And I find this out later. So guess what I did? I created a fake, or,
I remember that.
I created a fictitious
Yep.
Well, good for
TikTok.
you.
TikTok account, and I friended her. Mm-hmm. She didn't know who the hell I was.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm looking at her videos, and I'm hearing, and I'm watching the dancing, and I'm seeing the inspiration. And I sat her down, and I said, "Talk to me about TikTok." I said, "Can you tell me about the people that are?" "Oh, they're just my friends." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Do you know them?" "Oh, yeah, they're all my age." I said, "Oh, really?"
Good for you.
I said, "You wouldn't know by chance that there's the possibility that there's maybe a 46-year-old, that, or a guy
Yeah.
that has, not the best purpose in mind, that would want to seem like they're your friend or have good intent for you, but you have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to be extra vigilant." "Well, how do you?" "I mean, well, I am." I said, "Really?" I said, "I've been following you." She goes, "No, you haven't." She still doesn't know my TikTok.
He's watching a podcast tomorrow.
So she got rid
Yeah,
of it.
now,
And
like,
she was
Dad.
in tears, and because but I'm like, "No, I'm your dad,
Yeah.
and I will go through the weirdest of ways to seek you out and to see what you're doing that you think is all right because you got exposed to this."
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been
You know?
really, really careful. It's like a couple of clients that have like 12-year-old daughters, and like my wife says no roadblocks because creeps can like be, and I don't even, I'm the
Absolutely.
least techie 40-year-old
Yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah.
So my wife kind of said none of this, none of this, none of this. So she's like watched other people play on that game, but it's been
Yep.
for like an hour while I'm like cleaning upstairs and they're like 20 feet away. So it's been very little. We don't really do the sleepovers unless it's like grandma or
Right. Exactly.
Right.
a school friend one time because they were at a concert and we didn't want to get her at 10 o'clock at night. So very little exposure. But at some point in the next couple of years, when it's that time of the month, like you don't have daughters, right?
Right.
Two sons.
I have a daughter.
Do you ever picture your husband saying, "Sweetie, I'll go get you tampons"?
He's gotten me tampons, so
I would
he's
have,
loaded.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd have no
my
problem.
6-year-old gets me tampons.
Yeah.
Who
But
does?
My 6-year-old.
Okay.
I bought in the grocery store. It's like,
doesn't
that's,
get them.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm more concerned if you buy Depends.
Yeah. Hey, I just turned 49, not that way. Come on, Kurt.
But I mean, and that's the thing. Like to your point, even like the whole topic of like the transgender and the Target thing and all of that. And I was having a conversation with the kids because they were like, "Well, we want to go to Target. We want to go to Target." I said, "No, I'm not taking you to Target where they're going to promote the topic of, well, you can be Michelle today and just tuck your junk and everything is
Yeah.
cool." I'm like, I refuse to buy into
we
that
boycotted
narrative.
it.
I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Gary came walking in the kitchen and he was like, "What in the hell are we talking about?" And we were having this conversation because my husband refuses to go on social media. He wants nothing to do with it. So he's like, "I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to come home, I'm going to work some more and spend time with the kids." But we don't watch, again, that media.
But here's
And-
How do you, go ahead.
Good, Dan.
It's just one quick interesting point. It's interesting that, like, when it comes to military branches, or like they say, know your enemy. I think it's one thing to say, "Well, I never want to go on social media. I never want to hear the news," right? We think we're doing ourselves a major favor. I think that there's almost a little bit of a disservice there, because this is where you learn how to become equipped to potentially ward off something that's going to catch you off guard. You can't so disconnect and unplug from the reality and the culture that's around you to the point where you don't know how to counteract it when it's on your doorstep. Not that you sit and you give it the power to disrupt your core values and your way of thinking and living, and to the point where now you're checking out and you're spending 3 hours on all your social media platforms instead of engaging as a father, as a wife, as whatever, right? But I think you can't so disconnect from something. You have to. It increases your awareness, because go back to the very beginning of what the question was: are people informed to be able to vote? No, they're not. It's because they're not engaged.
Yeah.
So on a lot of this stuff, when we talk about raising kids, when we talk about spirituality, when we talk about politics, most people aren't really equipped because they're not engaged. You have to engage even into the arenas that you might not agree with.
It's hard to engage because a lot of people don't like conflict.
Correct. And that
Dana,
goes
yeah.
to the disagreement.
I was just gonna, because you were talking about not going to Target and stuff, and I was just gonna ask. It kind of tails off of this, right? But how do you make your kids aware that this is what's going on and how they handle it? Because I mean, my older one, he's in second grade now, but when he went to kindergarten, we were a month in, and he came home and told me that, well, and he was asking about like people being married and like if grandma and grandpa were married and things like that, and then he told me that, well, sometimes boys marry boys and girls marry girls, and we had never talked to him about that before, and so that was, now I have to be, on the offense, and what do you do?
So for us, like, I am one that, okay, I love, as for me, my own personal, like, TV at night. I watch the TV shows and like Law and Order and some of the things that are out and whatever. And yes, I realize that it is programming, and everything in today's society has a lesbian couple or a gay couple.
Overrepresented.
So we take
Commercials.
that opportunity to have those discussions. So my kids will watch a show with me, and I'll either pause it and then we have a discussion, or I fast forward and we have a discussion. So I am on social media. So anything that I find, see, whatever, I mean, I have a conversation with my husband about it. So he's aware. He knows, and I mean, our marriage story. So he knows that social media for him is a trigger to suck him back into past behavior.
patterns that aren't adding value to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So we completely, he cuts that off because he's attempted to add it
Yep.
back in, and it was not.
But see, okay, what you just did right there, he has a why.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
that. Again, you tell me your why.
Yep.
I'm sold.
Yep.
Right.
I'm sold.
Yep.
Most people don't have the why.
No. So and so that allows us again to have those open, deep conversations. And that is one of the beautiful things about what I believe, even for us as homeschoolers, is because, yeah, I might not be educated on all the history of our country, but this gives me the opportunity to learn alongside of my children, and we learn together.
Yeah.
So, and I can dictate what they're learning versus, oh, well, let's teach about this, but oh, yeah, let's teach that you can be a cat today and you can piss in a litter box. Like, what? No.
A furry.
Yes.
Furry.
And
So-
it really just, like, you have to look at your values. You have to look at the complete opposite, if you will, of what society is doing, because
See, done by
Right,
Deville.
exactly. Hey, if your
Elijah, what you
if
got?
your kid's a furry, you
Well-
just make sure you get him spayed and neutered. We'll reproduce.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Dana. No, have you heard of Liberty Kids? It's cute little cartoons, but it's like just history and the founding of our country. If you haven't seen it, or I mean, my 9-year-old is just addicted to U.S. history, and it kind of started with Liberty Kids at school, like 1 or 2 episodes, but then we bought the whole 4 DVD set. But it's like Benjamin Franklin, and he's going to France to help get the French to come to our aid to fight off the British. Like, it's not just like the cheesy bullet points that you teach you in school.
Yeah.
So now my daughter definitely knows more about the founding of our country than I do.
and that's why I love the Tuttle Twins.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah.
the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Pretty
so
similar.
I got a little comment, and then we're gonna end by going to a room with some final thoughts from each one of you guys. But I do want to make one point. As Kurt, you said this, and I'm gonna disagree with you on one point. Is this? Let me ask a question. I'll go around the room really quickly. Elijah, do you like or avoid conflict? Just quickly.
No, okay, real quick. I guess I kind of like it. Like, I like the salesmanship of business. Don't like fighting with my wife, though.
Okay,
Avoid.
Ross.
I like it.
Avoid.
Avoid.
I'm actually neutral. Sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not.
Well, I always tell people, if you have kids, you're lying. You love conflict. Because you know why? Because the reason why people say they avoid conflict is because they can't control the outcome. With their kids, they can control it. Or a dominant person can control it that way. So that's why they don't mind conflict. But that's why people said, no, you don't like conflict because you can't control the outcome. So if you yell at your kid, you know what the outcome is going to be. so you don't mind conflicting. And see, I think that we have to teach our kids. I get up and look for conflict. I just search for it. I'm looking. I'm every day I look for at least 5 or 6 hard things that I'm going for hard. You saying? Because it actually clarifies a lot of issues and things like that, and it makes the world a better place.
That's fair. When I know I'm right and I know I'm winning, I'll go for it.
Yeah.
And I won't let down.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I
You
can't
just go to that masculine side of you, right?
Yeah.
Much more than yours.
Whoa.
Come on, that's like the first
one today.
one today.
Dana, the first one today.
That's all right.
All right,
I think it
so
really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
It really does.
I can't thank you guys enough for being here tonight. Man, we hit some incredible topics tonight and stuff with that. And so some final thoughts. You know, if you are on social media or things, I want somebody to follow you. Let us know who you are. But Elijah will tell you this before you start. You said you're one of my favorite representatives in all the state.
Thank you.
You've done a fantastic job. I will always support you personally and financially and give you a platform because
Appreciate it.
It's because I like what you stand for as far as, like I said, freedom and liberty. We talk about it. Liberty to me is a great definition that's got to be out there, and so people know that. So we're gonna go around the room and just get some final thoughts, share anything you want to, and so Elijah, we'll start with you.
Oh man, I mean, it's definitely an honor to serve in the state legislature. I never, ever. I actually asked my dad, are you okay with me being a politician? Because it's just like being a slimy lawyer or other jobs that are equated with lying for a living. And I never wanted to be that guy. But I live in a nice 65% Republican area. I can kind of be myself. But yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of business. I'm sure you saw the ups and downs.
Yep.
Just being an anti-vaxxer, or I'm not wearing a mask while I scrub your shower. Like, I basically didn't talk a lot of politics. But once I got elected and was, giving out statements, there was definitely... So I don't really clean for Democrats anymore, which is their loss. But no, I really enjoy this type of medium because this is where our culture is going, right? Like radio is going to be something of the past someday. Yep. And this is what, people my age and younger are just thriving off of. So good for you for having this platform. I hope it helps.
Alex.
I like to thank you so much for having us. I want to do this every day, or like at least every once in a while. I just going off of the social conditioning and a lot of things that we've been talking about, and are people qualified and engaged and everything. One of the things I go back to with my clients a lot, no matter what their struggle is, I'm like, what would you do in the wild? Like, what would happen in the wild? So even like your conversation with like, what would you do with your daughter? Okay, if there was nobody else around, you would go get her tampons. You would have the hard conversation. You wouldn't be worried about anyone judging you for doing that. And I think that goes to what you were saying. Even me defending myself in what I'm doing, why am I doing that? So what would you do in the wild? You would be so fucking authentic. And so remove all the social conditioning. And if you have layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, you got to figure out where in your life they are, start to peel it back so that you can stand up for what you believe in. And then when you're doing that in an authentic way, that's where people will come to you and want to do it themselves. And no one's way should look like my way.
Ross.
Final thoughts. I look at a lot of the things that we talk about, obviously the 4 topics, and, a lot of this we've kind of focused on even as parents, and how are we instilling certain things into our kids? What's our role? But I consider, it's my role, it's my responsibility, but ultimately it's a gift. And if I don't do it, it is the whole train them up in the way that they should go so that as they grow old, they won't depart from it. There's some very strong core values that define who I am. And I want them to be able to have core values, things that drive them, with conviction to be able to have the why and, to have these precious young gifts of life entrusted into me as a parent, broken home or not, married or not. You have couples who are married who are just as dysfunctional as a day as long and are broken just by still being together. And so to me, I look at it, it's the gift of being able to impart the things that we're talking about are so problematic in today's society. And I won't give that up to anybody else. I don't care how much I trust you or how little I trust you. It's not your role. It's not your responsibility to shape my children. That's mine.
Dana.
So we talked about government and we talked about health and voting and everything today. And I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, I'm the government and the medical system's worst client ever. right? Because I don't need them, right? The last time I used the medical system was in 2017 when I had a baby, which you don't need the medical system for because it's not a sickness. And prior to that, it was 2015, again, when I had a baby, and you don't need the medical system for that, right? I don't need them, and I purposely live my life in a way where I don't need those kinds of people. And we talk about this all the time with clients too, that like, people are stuck in this like mainstream frame of thinking, and a lot of us are sitting over here in this like freedom frame of thinking. And my goal is to move people from this frame into this frame, not because they have to think the same things that I do, but because the view is just so much better over here. And the more people we can get to move from here to here, we can decrease the size of government to probably like 10% of what it is right now, because that's all that we really need. And then fewer people will also need the medical system, and we can get rid of the chokehold that they have on us, and then we can ultimately accomplish a bigger goal of bankrupting big pharma, because that would just be pretty amazing. And the thing with freedom too is just that, like, I mean, how are you even free, right? You're free by getting healthy, wealthy, and intelligent, because only then are you really autonomous, because you are not dependent on anybody, and no politician is coming to save you, not even Trump. Freedom is something that you grant yourself.
Ashley.
Well, first I want to say thank you for having me on this evening. But really, it's ultimately taking the responsibility. It's taking the responsibility for your health. It's taking the responsibility for your family, and even yourselves. When you rely on the government, when you rely on other people, what do you have? Like, rely on God, and the rest will take care of itself. And honestly, the stupid people weed themselves out.
Natural selection.
Yes.
Kara, what you got for us?
I think you're right in the sense of in every movement there's one person that stands up. First it was Noah. If you think about the Old Testament, then it was Abraham, then it was Moses, King David, and ultimately 1,000 years later, Jesus Christ, who would come and establish a Judeo-Christian principle by dying on a cross for our deliverance. If we lose those principles, we'll lose our nation. And the freedom of speech and all the liberties, carrying guns, all those things will be gone if we get our minds off the cross and what he did for us. We need someone, whether it's Donald Trump or somebody, to make a stand for the liberties and freedoms that we need to survive in this country.
Right. Well, it was a heck of a discussion tonight. You're saying there's some great back and forth, and I can't thank you guys enough for coming and sharing all your thoughts and some good agrees and disagrees that way. But it's kind of neat because I think that I'm excited that in the future I want some people to just absolutely hate what we're even talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Amen.
Right.
It's like, because even though we all kind of enjoy what we talk about, we still come from a different perspective, and but you know, some of this is but that's how you work things out. You know what I'm saying? Just by a simple statement of I disagree, it's led to, I can say I absolutely love my life in every single way. But once again, it takes a lot of courage for us to say I disagree. It takes a lot of courage for what we're all doing, and I can't thank you guys enough for all your opinions and views today, because it gives me a perspective of also moving forward to not only leading a family but also a big company. You know what I'm saying? So I hope to have you guys all back. You know what I'm saying, that way, and it's gonna be kind of fun having, you know, as we continue to grow it, and because even the first pilot one has done extremely well, which has been kind of cool. So this one was obviously built upon what we did last time and different, and so it's gonna be exciting to see the response. I can't wait to see what people say about you guys in the comments.
Amen.
All right, guys.
Thank you for having us.
You betcha, guys. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
All right.